Chapter 1991. Early in the morning, on the cloud platform at the summit of the immortal Marshall Peak, Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, and other 13 strong practitioners were already waiting on it. Around the cloud platform stood some important figures from the 7 great orthodoxies and other factions within the Cloud Prefecture. Today, the battle for the top 10 would begin. As the deep sound of the bell resounded through the clouds, the atmosphere instantly became solemn and silent. The first step in the battle for the top 10 is to determine the top 6. We will still use the method of drawing lots to choose our opponents. There will be one lucky lot. When the chief of the Great Void Tao sect, Guanxu, made the announcement, everyone was stunned. This was the battle for the top 10, and there was actually a lucky lot. Many people looked at the fairy-like Jintian Xianyue in her snow-white robe. She was the prodigy of the immemorial imperial clan, the Jintian clan. She was lucky enough to draw 2 lucky lots in the previous day's selection. She became one of the 13 people competing for the top 10 positions. This was naturally enviable. However, if there was still a lucky draw in the battle for the top 10, that would make people feel very uncomfortable. A person who drew the lucky lot had become one of the top 10 in the Cloud Prefecture Tao discussion. Was this fair to the other experts? As if he'd seen through everyone's thoughts, Guanxu said indifferently. In the struggle for the Grand Tao, both strength and luck are indispensable. Just like these old fellows here, practically all of them are quasi-emperor realm existences, and every single one of them can be said to be formidable. Yet after so many years, not a single one of them has been able to attain the Tao and become an emperor. Why is that? His voice was like thunder, resounding through the entire area. Without waiting for an answer, Guanxu said, "It's simple. You lack luck. If you don't have great luck, you can only stay before the emperor realm for the rest of your life. On the other hand, if you can grab hold of great luck, which one of these old fellows here doesn't have the possibility of becoming an emperor? This is the meaning of the lucky lot. It is also to warn you that when the time comes, the heavens and the earth will be on your side, but when the time comes, the hero will not be free. Luck is far more important than you think." As soon as he finished speaking, the surroundings became deathly silent. All of them had solemn expressions while their hearts surged. Luck, in the opinion of cultivators, such a seemingly ethereal force was extremely important indeed, and it was even to the extent that it would affect one's entire path towards the Tao and destiny. Next, we will draw lots to choose our opponents. Those who draw the lucky lot will advance directly. The other 12 will be divided into 6 groups to decide the top 6. After that, the 6 people who have lost will fight to decide the 3 people who will be in the top 10. Similarly, the top 3 candidates will be divided into 3 groups by the 6 people who won, and they will fight each other until the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place are determined. Guanxu announced the selection rules one by one, which made Lin and others understand. Lin Sun and the others finally understood. Lin Sun was still the first to stand out, followed by Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, and others, who drew lots one after another. Duoff Lin was the Lu. Lu Dubu's opponent was Yu Qianxing. Wang Wu Star. Hua Tian Wu Star. What caused everyone to be in an uproar and even shocked was that the lucky lot was drawn by Jintian Xianyue once again. Xian Xianin and He Yichun the Dao Yin Xian in Clan Hua, and Dao Yu of Jin Xianin felt a little embarrassed. She didn't expect to draw the lucky lot 3 times in a row. It was like a dream. She didn't know when her luck had become so good. It's not fair. She must have mastered some secret method to detect the jade lot in the box. Yu Qianxing shouted loudly. He was dressed in a blue robe and a pair of dragon-patterned boots. He was thin and had an extraordinary bearing, but he seemed to be very indignant at the moment. "No matter what secret method you use, I will detect it immediately. Young man, are you suspecting that I, Guanxu, cheated?" Guanxu said in a low voice. Yu Qianxing's face changed slightly, and he said, "I dare not. It's just that it's too strange. Even if one's luck is extremely strong, it's impossible to draw the lucky lot 3 times in a row." Obviously, he still suspected that Xianin had cheated. Moreover, the reactions of the others present showed more or less suspicion. "Since you doubt it," show me the evidence. Xianin looked cold. She was also very unhappy. What did this guy think she was? A person who cheated to get into the top 10? I don't have the evidence. But if you dare to fight with me, as long as you can hold on for 15 minutes, I will believe in your ability and luck and admit that you are in the top 10. Yu Qinxing took a deep breath and said resolutely, otherwise, even if we can't change the final result, I believe that many of our fellow Taoists here will definitely be unconvinced. Everyone couldn't help but look at him. Some people agreed with Yu Qinxing. Lin Sun sneered in his heart. Unconvinced? It was nothing more than jealousy of Xuanin's luck. Unexpectedly, Jin Tianxinyu agreed without hesitation. All right, I promise you. She looked indifferent, but there was a touch of coldness in her bright eyes. She was worried about not having a chance to show her strength. Yu Qianxing's provocation was exactly what she wanted. Guan Su glanced at Yu Qianxing and said, since that's the case, I agree to let the two of you fight first. Young man, let me remind you that this lady is a descendant of the primordial White Emperor. She was ranked 49th on the All Heavens King Saint ranking a few years ago. If you lose and still feel indignant, it won't be right. There was a trace of dissatisfaction in his voice. He was obviously very unhappy with Yu Qianxing's unexpected interference. His words caused many people's hearts to shiver. The 49th on the King's Sage board. This was the first time some people had heard of this news. This ranking was very shocking. It was eye-catching in the entire primordial world. Senior, don't worry. I want to spar with Miss Xianin and see the strength of the 49th on the King's Sage board. I won't have any complaints even if I lose. Yu Qianxing said indifferently. Guansu did not say anything else and waved his sleeve. Boom! The ancient battlefield once again reflected time and floated in the void. Jin Tianxinin was dressed in a white robe. Her black hair cascaded down like a waterfall as she floated onto the battlefield. Her graceful figure carried an ancient sword on her back. She was as graceful as a fairy and as picturesque as a poem. After the second round of selection, this was the first time everyone had a chance to see Jin Tianxuanin's combat strength. For a moment, she became the focus of everyone's attention. Miss Xianin, I personally have no prejudice against you. This battle is just to verify your ability and see if you are qualified to be ranked in the top 10. I hope you won't blame me. Yu Qianxing appeared on the battlefield in a flash and said in a low voice, cut the crap. Let's begin. Jin Tianxuanin's voice was cold. When facing Lin Sun, she was graceful and submissive like an obedient daughter from a humble family. But at this moment, she was like a female sword fairy, outstanding and elegant. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Yu Qianxing snorted coldly and suddenly attacked. Swoosh! His figure transformed, and wisps of misty starlight appeared around him. A long and shiny saber appeared in his hand, and the saber light shot into the sky. Chant of the stars. As he slashed out with his saber, it seemed as if the starry sky had descended. Thousands of stars swayed and circulated, emitting bursts of excited howls. Endless starlight transformed into peerless sharp light, and it gathered in the saber and spread out. Some big shots nodded secretly. Yu Qianxing seemed indignant and provoked Jin Tianxinin, but in fact, he wasn't careless during the battle. Just like at this moment, as soon as he attacked, he used the Tao domain, World of Stars, and the momentum was extremely shocking. Clang! At the same time, Jin Tianxinin attacked as well. Her sword hummed like a tide, and it rumbled in the heavens and the earth. The surging sword light suddenly transformed into a white emperor city. It floated between the heavens and the earth, and it was towering like an immortal divine city. For a time, the saber light and sword shadow clashed with each other on the battlefield. The blazing Taoist light and divine light swept out like a volcanic eruption, and it revealed a shocking and terrifying scene. The attention of everyone in the surroundings was instantly drawn over as well. Lin Sun stared at it for a moment before he withdrew his gaze, and he made a judgment in his heart. Even though Yu Qianxing was peerlessly formidable, he was definitely no match for Jin Tianxinin. As someone who had witnessed the White Emperor city of the Sword Domain, Lin Sun knew better than anyone how extraordinary Jin Tianxuanin's reserves and combat strength were. Moreover, unlike when he was on the rocking vessel, Jin Tianxuanin's cultivation had broken through to the perfection stage of the absolute Senking realm a long time ago, and his combat strength couldn't be compared to the past. Sure enough, in merely a short moment, Yu Tianxing showed signs of being suppressed, and he seemed to be in a disadvantageous position. Not long after, he didn't have the strength to fight back anymore, and he could only resist passively, causing him to seem to be in a sorry state. These changes caused countless exclamations of surprise in the surroundings. Only now did everyone realize that Jin Tianxuanin, who had drawn the lucky lot 3 times in a row, didn't just possess heaven-defying luck. Even his combat strength was shockingly formidable. For example, it was extremely likely that Yu Tianxing would be ranked in the top 10 if nothing unexpected happened. But at this time, in the battle with Jin Tianxuanin, he was completely suppressed. How could people not be surprised? Some big shots couldn't help sighing with emotion. As a descendant of the White Emperor of the ancient era, Jin Tianxuanin was very likely to become a female sword emperor who could shake the starry sky. Clang! Before long, a deafening collision sound rang out. Yu Tianxing's bright saber flew out of his hand, buzzing and wailing, while he fell heavily like a kite with a broken string. Bang! When his figure fell to the ground, he couldn't help coughing up blood. His handsome face was pale, full of surprise and horror. Was this the power of the 49th place on the All Heavens King's Saint list? There was a dead silence in the surroundings. All the people present, including the big shots, Lu Dubu, Xie Yuhua, and others, were shocked by the amazing combat strength shown by Jin Tianxuanin. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that such a beautiful and fairy-like woman could have such a terrifying combat strength. Only Lin Sun smiled, looking very calm. This was normal, and this was the demeanor of Jin Tianxuanin. Chapter 1992. Clang! Jin Tianxuanin put her ancient sword away, and her bearing was extraordinary and graceful. She swept the surroundings with her gaze and said, "Is there anyone else who's unconvinced? Feel free to seize this opportunity to fight me." Her cold voice carried a wisp of unique pride. Before the others could speak, Guan Su spoke first. "This matter ends here. If all you want to spar one-on-one, then feel free to wait until the Dao discussion ends. Now, let the competition for the top 10 begin." The corners of Jin Tianxuanin's mouth puckered slightly when she heard this, but she still turned around and left the battlefield. At this point, the others were speechless. Even Yu Tianxing had been defeated, and this was sufficient to prove that besides her heaven-defying luck, Jin Tianxuanin's own combat strength was sufficient to be ranked in the top 10. Only Yu Tianxing's expression was rather gloomy. Suffering such a crushing defeat before the competition for the top 10 had begun was quite a blow to his confidence. Swoosh! Su Muhan was the first to ascend the battlefield. He wore a bright yellow robe, and he had a handsome appearance and a dazzling elegance. Even though he was a figure ranked at the top of the 10 battle zones, Su Muhan's strength was so formidable that even some of the core disciples of the 7 great sects felt ashamed of their inferiority. In fact, among the 13 experts, only he, Lin Sun, and Yu Tianxing had walked out of the 10 battlefields. The other 10 were practically all from the 7 great sects, and even Jin Tianxuan had borrowed the identity of a member of the Xuanji Dao sect to participate. This obviously showed how formidable Su Muhan was. "Brother Jin, please." On the battlefield, Su Muhan spoke from afar. Swoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed in the battlefield, and he said, "Please." In an instant, the gazes of everyone present converged onto the two of them. Su Muhan was a peerless genius that refused to be roped in by the 7 great sects when he was young, and a peerless figure from the Su clan. On the other hand, Jin Dui was a dark horse that repeatedly surprised everyone, and he'd never suffered a single defeat since the Dao discussion began. The battle between these two peak figures was bound to be extraordinary. "Brother Jin, no matter the outcome of this battle, I only seek to fight to my heart's content." Su Muhan suddenly smiled as he strode forward. Bang! With just one step, an incomparably dazzling light rushed out from Su Muhan's body and turned into a brilliant sun that hung in the sky, illuminating the mountains and rivers. His entire body glowed brilliantly, while the glow of the Tao that flowed from him seemed material, and his entire body emanated a grand, imposing aura that was like the sun in the midday sky. So powerful. Su Muhan was obviously holding back. Someone whispered. During the selection earlier, even though Su Muhan's display was extremely shocking, no matter if it was her might or the aura she emanated, it wasn't as formidable as it was now. Among the 13 people here, which one of them didn't hold back? It's just that I didn't expect Su Muhan to use his true strength at the start of the battle. It's clear how much he values Jin Dui. Someone's eyes flickered. Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, Xie Yuhua, and the others all revealed serious expressions. They held their breaths and concentrated on the battlefield. The competition for the top 10 was related to whether they would be able to participate in the Tao discussion held by the 6 great Tao courts. So no matter who it was, no one dared be careless in the slightest. Boom! As Su Muhan strode forward, the sun hanging high in the sky became increasingly dazzling, as though it was burning and emitting terrifying energy waves. The solitary sun. This was the power of the Tao realm condensed by Su Muhan. It was unyielding, domineering, and incomparably violent. Ordinary experts of the same generation would be shocked in an instant, let alone make a move. They would feel fear and despair. It's a pity that I didn't take him in as my disciple back then. At this moment, countless old monsters in the 7 great orthodoxies sighed in their hearts. Su Muhan was a peerless genius who had shown extraordinary talent when he was young. Now, he was undoubtedly starting to shine. Boom! When he took the 9th step, the power around Su Muhan had climbed to the extreme. His whole body was dazzling, and his whole person was like a sun. During this process, Lin Sun stood still in the same place, but in fact, he was a little surprised. Without a doubt, Su Muhan was definitely one of the strongest opponents he had faced since he entered Cloud State. His aura, might, and the willpower that he revealed could be said to be outstanding and at the peak of his generation. Lin Sun said, "You want to fight to your heart's content?" "Sure, but I'm not sure if you can let me fight to my heart's content." Su Muhan laughed and said, "I'll do my best." As he spoke, he, who had been accumulating power for a long time, suddenly attacked. Boom! The world was dim, and Zhou Su was in chaos. Su Muhan pressed his palm, and a sun appeared in his palm, descending to the world, intending to burn everything. Lin Sun raised his fist and met it head-on with ease. When the two collided, an earth-shattering explosion sounded in the whole battlefield. The raging fist force and palm wind spread, causing many people to exclaim. It was because this first collision revealed such a magnificent scene that it could be said to be world-shocking and terrifying beyond imagination. Xie Yuhua, Wang Tu, and the others also looked solemn, wondering how they would deal with it if they were Jin Di or Su Muhan. Again, Su Muhan's long hair fluttered in the wind as he waved his palm forward. The palm force was like a sun, domineering and masculine, burning the sky and earth with unimaginable destructive power. With every palm strike, it felt as if a huge sun was falling down from the sky. This guy hides his strength well. Xie Yuhua's dreamy eyes were filled with surprise. I want to fight him. Wang Tu, who was carrying a huge sword on his back like a child, was eager to give it a try. To be able to condense his Tao domain to such a perfect state, Su Muhan is indeed not an ordinary person. Lu Dubu was deep in thought. At this moment, the fighting power Su Muhan displayed attracted the attention of the audience. And under such unparalleled, domineering, and violent attacks, Lin Sun remained calm, neither sad nor happy. He punched out, displaying the innate power of the yellow Earth Tao physique. Be it the power or the elegance he displayed, compared to Su Muhan, he was obviously too dull. But surprisingly, it just so happened that this carefree style of battle was able to deal with Su Muhan's attacks one after another. This Jin Dui isn't simple either. Many big shots revealed a strange look. Again, in the battlefield, Su Muhan let out a long roar, his bright yellow robe fluttering loudly. His power rose greatly in an instant. The audience was moved. So the big shots even stood up, unable to sit still. Su Muhan was at the peak great perfection Saint King realm. But the power he displayed was so powerful that it made the older generation quasi-emperors feel alarmed. This foundation is quite impressive. Wu Huang's grayish-brown eyes finally revealed a hint of surprise, no longer as calm as before. Originally, only Lu Dubu was worthy of his attention in his eyes. Later on, Jin Dui appeared, and now Su Muhan's unexpected performance made Wu Huang restrain his pride and began to take him seriously. Boom! In the battlefield, Su Muhan was like a huge sun moving horizontally, radiating boundless light and extremely domineering. Every move he made had the power to burn mountains and boil seas. But under such attacks, Lin Sun still did not reveal any emotions. His figure was outstanding as he attacked with his fists, simple and natural, but every strike could shake his opponent's attack and disintegrate his opponent's attacks. In just a moment, the two had exchanged more than 1,000 blows. Su Muhan grew stronger as he fought, his aura becoming more and more intense and oppressive. The power he displayed made Xie Yuhua, Wang Tu, and company reveal solemn expressions. Lin Sun was terrifyingly steady. Be it in the first round of selection, the second round of selection, or even his current battle with Su Muhan, the feeling he gave others was that of a silent divine mountain. Although he did not have any astounding radiance, he was unshakable. This similarly made everyone present tremble and astonished. Even Guan Su, Hung Xiao, and the other sect masters could not remain calm. Good. To be able to meet an opponent like Brother Jin, the path of seeking the Tao will not be so lonely. Su Muhan's eyes lit up as his fighting spirit soared. He began to use his trump card, circulating the power of his Tao domain to its limits, as though he was a god that controlled the sun. In an instant, it seemed as if a myriad of suns had appeared within the battlefield, and every single one of them was dazzling and resplendent. But in an instant, the thousands of suns fused into Su Muhan's figure. Boom! The incarnation was like the sun, illuminating the world. At that moment, Lin Sun was finally moved. His deep, black eyes suffused a strange look. The power of this strike was so great that he finally felt an inundating pressure. It also ignited the fighting spirit in his heart. He no longer hesitated as he used his true strength. Wang, the seal of all living, condensed and fused into Lin Sun's Tao domain, displaying the charm of like an abyss, but not an abyss, like a furnace, but not a furnace. In the area with Lin Sun as the center, the void collapsed and sank. Dust, light, and shadows seemed to be devoured. Only the seal of all living shone on the world. At this instant, all the experts that noticed this scene felt a strand of horrified coldness arise in their hearts, and even their souls and hearts felt like they were trembling. It was as though the moment this seal appeared, it could devour everything, annihilating everything in the world. What kind of power was this? The expressions of those important figures changed. However, before they could react, Su Muhan and Lin Sun, who were going all out, had already clashed. Boom! At that moment, the ancient battlefield shook violently. The power of the restrictions that covered it revolved and appeared. In the battlefield, Tao light was boundless and Tao sounds rumbled. Endless dazzling light was like a vast ocean, completely drowning that place. Not to mention Lu Dubu and the others. Even those important figures were unable to pry into the scene in the battlefield. But the more it was like this, the more shocked they were. They could not imagine that this was a power that a peerless Saint King could control. Only after a while did the smoke and dust in the battlefield gradually dissipate and calm was restored. Then, Su Muhan's hair was disheveled and his clothes were ragged. There was blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his face was so pale that it was almost translucent. He stood there, as though he had encountered something incomprehensible, and he remained silent. Chapter 1993. After a short silence, the cloud platform was in an uproar. Su Muhan was defeated. Such a genius, who had shown extraordinary talent at a young age and was fought over by the Seven Orthodoxies, had shown an earth-shattering style in the previous battle. He was like the sun, shining on the world. But in the end, he was still defeated. No one saw clearly how Su Muhan was defeated in the last confrontation. But it was also because of this that it was even more shocking. Just how strong was Jin Duyi? Perhaps only Su Muhan, who had really fought with him, could deeply understand. Awesome, really awesome. I have been cultivating for so long and thought that there were only a few people in Yinzhou who could fight with me. But now I find that the road of Tao is far more exciting than I imagined. On the battlefield, Su Muhan showed a look of emotion. Brother Jin, this battle is no less than a rare training for me. Even if I am defeated, I am still very happy. Thank you very much. He cupped his hands and bowed seriously, looking sincerely convinced. Some big shots were moved. Su Muhan was not discouraged in the face of a great defeat. Instead, he had such breadth of mind and spirit. His performance was also very praiseworthy. Lin Sun nodded and said nothing more. Su Muhan was very happy, but at the end of the battle, he was not happy. It was a very subtle feeling. Perhaps for Su Muhan, this battle could be regarded as the extreme. Even if he was defeated, he could gain a lot of experience and insights. But for Lin Sun, there was nothing to write home about. The only thing worth appreciating was perhaps the Tao field of grandson that Su Muhan had mastered. The first battle of the top 10, Jin Duyi won. When Lin Sun walked down from the battlefield, he suddenly became the focus of attention. No matter who it was, they all had the same feeling. What was the real limit of Jin Duyi? Who could really shake him? Anyway, after this battle, Jin Duyi was already one of the top 6 candidates and had the qualification to participate in the Tao discussion conference. What awaited him next was the battle of the top 3. The second battle, Lu Dubu against Yu Tianqing. Lu Dubu won, Yu Tianqing lost. This defeat was a heavy blow to Yu Tianqing again. However, he still had one last chance to fight for a spot in the top 10. He had not been completely eliminated, which was a blessing in disguise. The third match was between Wu Huang and Wang Tuesday. This battle could be said to be filled with danger and was extremely intense, and it attracted the attention of everyone present. Wu Huang's combat strength was peerless, and his combat style was strange and unfathomable. He was like a god of death that walked at the edge of darkness, and he was formidable to the point it caused everyone present to tremble. On the other hand, Wang Tu, who looked like a child and carried an enormous sword on his back, was similarly powerful to the point of being astounding. His sword Dao was imposing and forceful. It reversed yin and yang to the extreme. When the two of them clashed, the expressions of all the important figures on the scene changed. Even Xie Yuhua, Lu Dubu, and the others had grave expressions. At this point in the selection, people like them obviously didn't hold back any longer, and they utilized various unparalleled combat techniques. That scene could only be described as world-shaking. But in the end, Wang Tu lost. Although his sword Dao was peerlessly powerful, Wu Huang's strength was even more powerful. When he lost, Wang Tu's young and tender face was filled with gloom, and he left the arena without saying a word. It was obvious that he was unwilling to accept this outcome. As for Wu Huang, he shook his head with a sneer. After this battle, Wu Huang also successfully entered the top 6, obtaining the qualifications to compete for the top 3. The third match was between Xie Yuhua and Returning Mountain. Xie Yuhua was a legendary figure of the Cloud Star Divine Sect. She had an ethereal bearing, peerless beauty, and rare talent. Her fame had spread throughout the Cloud Prefecture many years ago. As for Returning Mountain, he was a direct disciple of the Solitary Origin Sword Tower, an Emperor's follower, and a peak-perfected Sage Monarch sword cultivator. He was ranked 6th in the second round of selection. In terms of fame, heritage, and combat strength, he was in no way inferior to anyone present. The battle between the two also attracted the attention of everyone present. However, what shocked everyone was that returning Mountain was at a disadvantage from the beginning of the battle. It wasn't because he wasn't strong enough, but because the strength Xie Yuhua displayed was too astonishing. The Dao domain she controlled, the ruins of true martial, produced a vast martial world. Thousands of martial mystic techniques were released within it, and no matter how returning Mountain resisted or counterattacked, he was always suppressed and defeated. In the end, returning Mountain had no choice but to admit defeat. It was also this battle that made Xie Yuhua the center of attention. Some of the important figures gasped, awed by her elegance. As the third match came to an end, battle after battle unfolded on the ancient arena. Some were evenly matched and extremely intense, or it might be dangerous, unpredictable, and exciting. Finally, the top 6 were chosen. They were Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, Xie Yuhua, Tung Yiqin, and Lung Xiujia. Among them, Tung Yiqin came from one of the 7 great orthodoxies, Fengxia Spirit Mountain. He was a descendant of the primordial Golden Vine race, and had exceptional talent and a strong heritage. Lung Xiujia came from the Canaan Zen sect. He was a powerful Zen cultivator with an invincible Vajra body. The 6 of you will draw lots again to select the top 3. Guan Su stood up and announced. The other 6 people who were defeated will also have to draw lots to choose the 8th, 9th, and 10th candidates. After a pause, he continued, Golden Sky Mystic Moon, who drew the lucky lot, does not need to participate in the selection. She could be ranked 7th. The moment he said this, everyone was shocked. Golden Sky Mystic Moon frowned and said, Senior, I would rather give up this lucky lot and fight for the top 10 with my own battle strength. Guan Su said, This is luck. The rules cannot be broken. You drew the lucky lot and could be ranked 7th. However, because of this, you do not have the chance to participate in the selection. Golden Sky Mystic Moon was about to say something, but was stopped by Guan Su. Rules were rules and could not be changed. This made Golden Sky Mystic Moon speechless. Perhaps to be ranked 7th was already an incredible honor for other experts. But to her, this ranking was not enough to satisfy her. But since things had already come to this, she could only accept this arrangement. Next was the drawing of lots. First were the battles for the 8th, 9th, and 10th places. Su Muhan against Yu Qianxing. Wang Tu against Returning Mountain. Wen Junzhai against Yu Xiaofeng. In the end, after many battles, Wang Tu was ranked 8th, Su Muhan was ranked 9th, and Wen Junzhai was ranked 10th. Yu Qianxing, Returning Mountain, and Yu Xiaofeng were eliminated. Now, the top 10 were decided. It was worth mentioning that when Junzhai, who was ranked 10th, came from the Xuanji Dao sect. Now, the battle for the top 3 begins. When Guan Su's voice fell, Lin Sun and the other 5 drew lots one by one. Lin Sun drew Lung Xiujia. Lu Dubu drew Tung Yiqin. Wu Huang drew Xie Yuhua. When they saw such a lineup, the audience was full of expectations. Each of these 6 people was peerless and belonged to the top figures in the same realm. They also represented the highest level of the Sage King realm in Yinzhou. Now, the top 3 would be born among the 6 of them, who could not pay attention to it. The first battle, Jin Duyi against Lung Xiujia. On the battlefield, Lin Sun floated over and looked at Lung Xiujia from afar. This was a skinny young man with an extremely mellow and ethereal aura. His eyes were like the deep sea, and his body emitted wisps of power of law like dragons and snakes. Lung Xiujia came from the Canaan Zen sect. He cultivated the Bo Ruo, void-suppressing scripture, and controlled the field of Tao, the Buddhist fire of Tao. In the previous election battle, he showed extremely outstanding combat strength. Taoism Peer Gene, I know you have been holding back. If it's possible, I hope you can use your real strength in the battle. Lung Xiujia looked solemn, and his eyebrows were clear. In this way, even if I lose, I can be like Taoism, Peer Su Muhan, and have no regrets. The audience was silent. No one expected that Lung Xiujia would make such a request before the battle began. Did this mean that deep in his heart, he did not have much hope to defeat Jin Duyi? Lin Sun was also stunned. He thought for a while and said, "Okay." Lung Xiujia smiled slightly and said, "I will use my strongest power at the first moment. Please give me some pointers." As his voice fell, boom, Lung Xiujia's temperament suddenly changed, as if he had transformed from a solemn bodhisattva into a skanda vajra, who glared at all living beings. Around him, the shadow of the Buddhist fire of Tao emerged, in which the chanting of Sanskrit and the shadows of 3,000 Buddhas emerged, sitting in all directions and illuminating the world. For a time, the battlefield was suffused with vast golden Buddhist light, and it was magnificent beyond compare. The invisible and terrifying aura spread like a tide. Even if it was a top-notch figure of the same generation, that person would probably have to endure extreme pressure and be extremely fearful of such power. But Lin Sun seemed to be unaware of it. He stepped forward alone. Wherever he passed, the surging golden Buddhist light could not shake or stop Lin Sun in the slightest, as if hitting an immovable rock. On the contrary, as Lin Sun stepped forward, the rolling Buddhist light seemed to evaporate and be annihilated under his footsteps. Boom! At the same time, all kinds of Sanskrit and chanting resounded, shaking Lin Sun's soul and state of mind like thunderclaps. For a moment, it was as if thousands of Buddhas were chanting enlightenment scriptures, producing supreme Buddhist power. This kind of power was enough to subdue all living beings in an instant and make them convert to Buddhism. From then on, they would become a devout follower of Buddhism. Even a practitioner would find it extremely difficult to resist this kind of terrible power on the soul. However, all this was still in vain for Lin Sun. The Buddha's voice, which contained supreme mystery, could not shake Lin Sun's state of mind and soul from beginning to end. With a calm expression, he continued to move forward, walking in the sea of Buddhist light and the world of Sanskrit as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard. Lung Xiujia's expression suddenly became extremely solemn. Boom! As he put his palms together, he chanted the name of Buddha. The golden Buddhist light and Sanskrit all over the sky suddenly turned into endless karma, fire burning, illuminating the world. All the strongmen who witnessed this scene felt a stinging pain in their eyes and a burning feeling in their soul. They couldn't help but change their expressions. Chapter 1994. The Buddhist fire was like a sea, emitting a terrifying and boundless, purifying aura. It seemed to be able to cleanse the universe and kill all evils. Purifying Buddhist fire. Since ancient times, someone in the Canaan Zen sect has cultivated such a supreme Buddhist fire again. A big shot up from his seat, his expression filled with shock. Purifying Buddhist fire. It was regarded as one of the 4 great divine fires of Buddhism. In ancient times, an emperor of Buddhism in the Canaan Zen sect had once incinerated a demonic area with this fire, and it shocked all the heavens. But no one had imagined that such a divine flame with peerless might would actually appear once more after countless years, and it was created by Lung Xiujia on the battlefield. Boom! The transparent Buddhist fire emitted boundless light, and it roared like a dragon as it attacked and raged. Lung Xiujia, who stood in it, was like an angry Buddha. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly, but he didn't stop his steps. Only his spirit, qi, and spirit suddenly ran in his body. His body was like a towering mountain, and his spirit was like a vast and thick earth. In the acupoints all over his body, countless bright and sharp Taishan sword chi buzzed out at this moment and appeared across the sky. Every wisp of sword chi was shining with a perfect luster, and it was branded with the profound meaning of the Great Way. When it appeared in the void, it was like a curtain of sword rain, covering the sky and the sun. 10 direction, sword rain. This was another killing move that Lin Sun had comprehended and condensed from Taishan sword scripture not long ago. The sword rain was like a curtain, and it gathered 360,000 sword chi, covered the land, and displayed the Taishan way of killing. Now, this move was displayed by Lin Sun with the yellow earth Taoist body, and its power was simply terrifying. Buzz! Buzz, buzz. The sound of the sword was like a tide, and it surged through the 9 heavens and the earth. The sword rain was like a curtain, crisscrossing and sweeping out densely. It could destroy the 9 heavens and the 9 underworlds. Such a scene shocked everyone present. What kind of swordsmanship was this? Boom! On the battlefield, sword chi raged like rain and collided with the purifying Buddhist fire. For a time, sword chi flowed, flames flew, and rumbled, causing the entire battlefield to shake violently. It was too terrifying. The last blow of Su Muhan and Lin Sun's duel could already be called abnormal, but compared with the current battle, it suddenly seemed dull. Moreover, it was the first time for everyone present to see Lin Sun display the power of Sword Tao. It was also the first time for them to realize that this dark horse had such terrifying attainments in Sword Tao. This was also inconceivable. When the dust and dirt dispersed and the flames and sword chi withdrew, Lung Xiujia's figure was stiff like a clay statue on the battlefield, and he didn't dare make the slightest movement. His pupils dilated, his smooth forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his face was pale. Because numerous translucent, crystalline, and sharp strands of sword chi were standing firmly in his surroundings, and every single strand of sword chi was only an inch away from his skin. Upon closer inspection, Lung Xiujia's skin was covered in goosebumps. In the distance, Lin Sun stood alone with his hands behind his back. When they saw this scene, everyone went silent, and all of them were shocked. Purifying Brahma fire couldn't stop Jin Di's killing attack. Everyone knew that if Jin Di hadn't stopped in time at the last moment, Lung Xiujia would have been pierced by the chaotic swords and died suddenly. It turns out that this is Brother Jin's real killing means. In the deathly silent atmosphere, Lung Xiujia opened his mouth softly with a look full of emotion, disappointment, fear, and admiration. I lost. As Lung Xiujia admitted defeat, the countless Tai Xian sword chi covering an inch of his body suddenly turned into a light rain, swept into Lin Sun's body, and disappeared. "Thank you," Lin Sun said and turned to leave. Seeing him walk out of the battlefield with a victorious posture again, those big shots present all showed a complex expression. Jin Di hid his strength too deeply. Before, who could have expected that he had mastered such a terrifying and fierce sword Tao? The sword chi was like a curtain falling like rain. Just thinking about the scene from before was enough to make one shudder and feel their scalps go numb. In fact, the amount of sword chi was not only huge, but the power contained in it was also beyond imagination. So far, Jin Di is already in the top 3. Who could have expected this result? Some big shots sighed with emotion. So did the others. As for Lung Xiujia, he could only end the battle gloomily at this moment. No matter how strong he was, no matter how amazing he still stopped before the top 3. This guy is a big enemy. Lu Dubu looked solemn. When he first heard of Lin Sun's name, he just paid attention to it and didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until he was surpassed by Lin Sun in the second round of selection that he began to pay attention to this dark horse from Lingfeng Theater of Operations. And from the beginning of the third round of selection until now, as Lin Sun defeated Hellion Qi, Lan Yunke, Su Muhan, and Lung Xiujia, as he witnessed the details of Lin Sun's victories again and again, Lu Dubu began to feel a kind of substantial pressure in his heart. This opponent was not only terrifyingly stable, but also had many hidden killing means. Shi Ling and Shi Zi really lost for no reason. Wu Huang's grayish-brown eyes flickered incessantly. Lin Sun's repeated victories also moved him, and he realized that he had met a real strong opponent in this Cloud State Dao discussion. What's a top 3 in Cloud State Dao discussion? What my young master really cares about is the Dao discussion gathering that gathers all the peerless, monstrous geniuses. Jin Tian Xinyuan murmured at her heart, feeling proud. Only she knew Lin Sun's background the best. Not long after, the curtains of the second battle were drawn. Lu Dubu versus Tung Yichen. Tung Yichen, a descendant of the ancient Golden Vine clan, the core successor of Fengxia Spirit Mountain, one of the 7 great orthodoxies, and a strange man who controlled rare talents. His previous achievements could be said to be extremely dazzling. But in the battle with Lu Dubu, Tung Yichen was obviously slightly inferior. Even though he used all his means, he was still unable to turn the tide and was defeated on the spot. However, the strength and methods he had displayed had shocked everyone present. The third battle, Wu Huang versus Xie Yuhua. This battle had suddenly become the battle that attracted the most attention so far. The reason was very simple. Both sides of the battle were too extraordinary. Wu Huang's formidableness had long since been proven through numerous battles, and he was invincible in the same cultivation realm as he crushed all his opponents all along the way. Xie Yuhua's display was similarly shocking and remarkable. Coupled with the fact that she was the only woman who had the chance to slaughter her way into the top 3, she naturally received extra attention. In fact, when this battle began, it really didn't disappoint everyone present here. Wu Huang and Xie Yuhua were like two needles against each other, and the ability and strength they revealed could be said to be top-notch in the world. Not to mention the experts of a younger generation, even the hearts of the great figures present here shook, and they were dazzled while exclaiming repeatedly with surprise. The atmosphere in the surroundings was completely drawn over by the battle between the two of them. Only Lin Sun seemed to be comparatively more composed. He watched with great interest, and it was even to the extent that he was occasionally shocked by it. Along with the passage of time, the battle between Wu Huang and Xie Yuhua grew more and more intense, and they were completely locked in a battle that was evenly matched. It caused everyone to be unable to discern and even be unable to determine exactly who would win in the end. If I want to determine the outcome, then I can only win by a surprise move, and there are only two situations in which I can do so. The first is to execute some sort of trump card, and the second is to utilize some sort of secret treasure that can be used as a trump card. Lin Sun pondered deeply and guessed. Right when these thoughts had just arisen in his heart, a droning sound resounded in the battlefield, and then a bronze wheel suddenly appeared in Wu Huang's palm. Its surface was covered in various blood-red Dao markings, and it emitted an ancient and strange aura of blood. The hearts of everyone present here went cold. The aura of this bronze wheel was too strange and bloody, and just looking at it from afar caused one's heart to palpitate and a chill to run down one's spine. Especially those great figures. Their pupils even constricted as they came to a conclusion in unison. An emperor artifact. Undoubtedly, this treasure was similar to the demon suppression halberd that Hellion Chi had once utilized. Both of them were supreme treasures in the emperor realm, and they possessed unfathomable might. Wham! As the bronze wheel spun, the nearby space warped and collapsed, and then a bloody door appeared and swiftly enveloped down towards Xie Yuhua. Xie Yuhua seemed as if she was facing a formidable enemy, and she practically went all out to resist it. However, in merely the time of a few breaths, her beautiful face had turned ghastly pale while her movements had become sluggish, and she'd been completely suppressed. The reason was that as the bronze wheel revolved, it emanated the energy of blood, and it formed a strange energy of the realm that was capable of producing terrifying corrosive might. It caused her combat abilities to be restrained, causing her to feel as if she'd fallen into a swamp, and she was in a passive state. In the end, she'd still lost, and countless sighs of regret resounded in the surroundings because of this. Everyone was able to discern that Xie Yuhua and Wu Huang's combat strengths were probably on par, and she'd lost in the end because of the precious treasure in Wu Huang's possession. On the other hand, the sect master of Cloudstar Divine Sect felt his heart bleed when he witnessed this scene, and he muttered bitterly, "If I knew this would happen, I would have given the precious treasure of the sect to Xie Yuhua to utilize." Yes, he discerned that Xie Yuhua's defeat was because she lacked an emperor artifact that could go against the bronze wheel. The outcome doesn't matter. It's fine so long as we're able to participate in the Tao discussion. At that time, I hope to fight you again if I have the chance. On the battlefield, Xie Yuhua's clear eyes were calm and indifferent like a dream, as she turned around and left after she spoke these words. A wisp of a cold smile arose on the corners of Wu Huang's mouth, yet he didn't say anything. At this point, the top three of the Cloud Prefecture Dao discussion had been chosen, and they were respectively Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, and Wu Huang. Lu Dubu and Wu Huang being able to seize such a position was within the expectations of everyone. Only Lin Sun, who disguised himself as Jin Di, was actually able to fight his way out of the encirclement and ascend into the top three, and it exceeded the expectations of most people. Such a dark horse had experienced the first and second rounds of the selections. Yet up until now, not only had he not lost a single battle, his results had always been at the top. This was too shocking, especially Daoist Lan from Profound Void Isle. He seemed as if he'd eaten a dead fly. On the other hand, Hung Xiao grinned from ear to ear, and he didn't conceal his admiration and support for Lin Sun at all. However, the selection still had to be carried out to determine who would be ranked first, second, and third in the end. Her monthly votes had instantly fallen to the 9th position. All of them looked around to see if they had any free monthly votes to support the goldfish. Chapter 1995. On the cloud platform, everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, and Wu Huang. These were the top three of the Cloud State Dao discussion. The competition for the top three rankings will begin tomorrow at dawn. Here are 3 high-clarity nature pills. Once the 3 of you return, refine them, and you'll naturally be able to recover your cultivations to their peaks overnight. Guan Su stepped forward and flicked his finger. The 3 pills turned into streams of light and fell into the hands of Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, and Wu Huang, respectively. There was a commotion. Some of the big shots were shocked by Guan Su's generosity. The Shang Purity Pill was a secret medicine of the Great Void Sect. It was rumored that the materials needed to refine this pill numbered more than 1,000, and every single one of them was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. Such a divine pill could be described as priceless, because it could not be bought in the outside world. Even the Great Void Sect, ordinary heirs could not obtain such a gift. But now, just to help Lin Sun and the others recover their strength, Guan Su casually gave out 3 Shang Purity pills. How could they not be shocked? Some of the strong cultivators even revealed envious looks. They had heard of the Shang Purity pill a long time ago, and they knew that this pill could not only recover one's strength quickly, but it also had incredible effects on the cultivation of the absolute Saint King realm. At this point, the crowd dispersed. The news of today's battle spread from the Great Void Sect in the shortest time possible, and it spread to the Great Void City, causing a great commotion. Especially the news that Lin Sun had fought his way into the top 3 as a dark horse. It caused countless voices of surprise. That night, in the cave dwelling, Lin Sun looked at the Shang Purity pill in his hand. The pill was as big as a pigeon's egg, and it was green all over. Its surface was branded with marvelous Taoist patterns that looked like earthworms, and it glowed with divine brilliance. The rich and clear fragrance of the medicine permeated the air, reaching straight to the depths of one's soul, making one feel relaxed and happy. When he opened his mouth and swallowed it, the pill immediately turned into a warm and strong flow of heat that spread throughout his body. In an instant, Lin Sun felt that his spirit, qi, and spirit were like weeds that grew in spring, and he felt like he was floating. Boom! He immediately activated his cultivation base and refined it with all his might. In just a few hours, Lin Sun was keenly aware that his peak Saint King realm intermediate stage cultivation had advanced a lot and was now only a hair's breadth away from the late Saint King realm. The most miraculous thing was that the explosive rise in his cultivation didn't affect his foundation, and everything revealed a smooth and solid feeling. Good treasure. Lin Sun couldn't help praising in his heart. The Great Void Dao sect first gave out the Great Void, refining Dao Pagoda, so that the participants could obtain the Martial Path origin power. Now, they're even giving out prime clarity pills to the top 3 experts. In this case, how could the experts who receive these favors not remember the Great Void Dao sect's kindness? It's no wonder the Great Void sect is the #1 orthodoxy in Yinzhou. Their courage and methods are indeed not something normal forces can compare to. Lin Sun sighed with emotion, shook his head, got rid of distracting thoughts, and began to meditate again. Jin Di, Wu Huang. In another cave residence, Lu Dubu sat casually on the ground with a leisurely manner. At the tip of his finger, a cold and illusory Taoist light appeared and evolved into various visions. There were the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, grass, trees, and the vicissitudes of life, and the changes of all things. Life is like a dream. If you think that the power I've shown today is my full strength, then you're wrong. After a long time, Lu Dubu murmured. His eyes were filled with absolute confidence. Although the blood prison divine wheel has been exposed in advance, it doesn't matter. If it can play a deterrent role and make them vigilant and fearful, then it'll be even better. In the same night, Wu Huang, dressed in a black robe, sat in the cave residence and was also planning for the battle of the top 3 tomorrow. His black hair was loose, and his whole body was surrounded by gray fog. He was like a demon sitting alone in the darkness. When his eyes opened and closed, there was a cold and frightening light. Jin Di is a man of deep concealment. He must have a trump card. It's impossible for Lu Dubu to expose all his trump cards today. If I want to defeat them, it seems that I have to use some real trump cards. Wu Huang stroked his chin, and his eyes were as deep as water. Yuhua, you can't be discouraged. It's not shameful to be defeated by an emperor treasure. In the quiet of the night, Madam, you comforted Lin Sun softly in the courtyard. Xie Yuhua smiled and said, Elder, I'm not as fragile as you think. I just didn't expect that Jin Dui could fight his way into the top 3. As you said at the beginning, it's not too much to overestimate him. Speaking of Lin Sun, Madame Yu's eyes were also full of surprise. She said, he is indeed an unexpected variable. I believe that after the selection of Tao discussion, his name is destined to resound over Yinzhou. Elder, do you think he can win the first place? Xie Yuhua asked curiously. Madame Yu pondered and said, it's hard to say. Neither Lu Dubu nor Wu Huang can be compared with ordinary peerless figures. No one knows whether they have more powerful trump cards in their hands. After a pause, she continued, however, there is no doubt that Jin Dui is the one who hides the most. Yuhua, have you noticed that no matter if it's the second round of selection or the third round of selection, no matter how strong the opponent Jin Dui encountered, no matter how great a victory he obtained, he never seemed to be excited about it. His state of mind and emotions are too calm. Xie Yuhua thought carefully for a moment and immediately nodded. It's true. I even feel that his mind has never been on the battle, and he is indifferent to everything. Lady Yu agreed with him. She sighed and said, perhaps, in his eyes, these battles are not dangerous at all. Or perhaps his pride has long been hidden in his bones, and he doesn't want to show off in front of others. Xie Yuhua's curiosity was aroused at once. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of demeanor he will have when his fighting spirit is really ignited and he shows his sharpness. I've caught a glimpse of it before. Madam, you suddenly remembered that in the second round of selection, Jin Di had fought his way to the 9th level at an unbelievable speed and became the first expert to pass the test before Lu Dubu and Wu Huang. At that time, the sharpness that Jin Dui had displayed amazed all the influential figures present. Unfortunately, that scene had happened in the Great Void Refinement Dao Pagoda, so people could only see the surface and not the truth behind it. Thinking of this, Madam Yu said confidently, I'm sure that the appearance of Lu Dubu and Wu Huang will form a powerful force that will make Jin Di not dare to hold back anymore. Then we'll wait and see. Xie Yuhua's eyes were dreamy and full of anticipation. Similar discussions took place in different places under the night sky. The most discussed topic was the top 3 rankings of the Dao discussion competition. Jin Dui, Lu Dubu, Wu Huang. Among these 3, who would win the title of first place? Everyone was looking forward to it. The next morning, before dawn, the cloud platform of the immortal Martial Peak was already full of figures. Guansu, Heng Xiao, Taoist Lan, and other big shots, as well as Xie Yuhua, Wang Tu, Su Muhan, and other young experts had all arrived. When they saw the figures of Lin Sun, Lu Dubu and Wu Huang appear on the cloud platform. All eyes immediately gathered on them. Today, the battle for the top 3 rankings would begin. After one night, Lu Dubu seems to be more confident than before. He has an invincible demeanor. Someone keenly noticed the subtle change in Lu Dubu's aura. Wu Huang is the same. He looks frightening. It seems that he is full of confidence for today's battle. Discussions arose in the field, but Jin Di seems to be the same as before, calm and without any sharpness. This guy can really keep his composure. Many people tried to find some difference in Lin Sun's expression and actions, but they were disappointed in the end because Lin Sun was the same as before. Today, the battle for the top 3 rankings of Yunzhou competition will begin, and the 3 of you will have the final battle. Guansu stood up and his voice resounded in all directions. The first battle, Lin Sun against Lu Dubu. Immediately, the two stepped onto the battlefield together. Jin Di, today's battle is about the first battle. I will exert all the strength I have mastered. You have to be careful. Lu Dubu's sleeves fluttered in the wind. He was elegant and romantic. When he spoke with a smile, there was a sense of looking down on the mountains and rivers. These words undoubtedly prove that he did not use his full strength in the previous election battle. That's good. Lin Sun nodded. Lu Dubu immediately made his move. His skinny figure rose into the air, and a dreamlike sparkling rain of light flew out from his body. As his fingertips moved, buzz, the rain of light turned into a field of Tao. Mountains, rivers, the sun and the moon, the sky and the earth, the ups and downs of the world, the changes of all things, and all kinds of strange phenomena emerged in it. Life is like a dream. After many years of fighting and selection, Lu Dubu and the others had already revealed most of their fighting methods, even if they were holding back. Just like the current life is like a dream, Lu Dubu had used it before. The only difference was that the current life is like a dream was far more powerful and terrifying than before, whether it was power or atmosphere. Lin Sun was still the same as before, waving his fists to kill, simple, natural, and understated. Soon, the two fought fiercely. On the battlefield, scenes of unparalleled battle were played out, attracting the attention of the audience. Reality is not reality. Dream is not a dream. What my heart leads, the big dream, is real. After hundreds of rounds, Lu Dubu spoke slowly. As he spoke, the aura around his body was like a great river, producing an earth-shattering roar. In an instant, everyone only felt a blur in front of their eyes. They were shocked to find that Lu Dubu's aura was rising steadily, breaking through the barrier of the absolute Saint King realm and stepping into the Quasi-Emperor realm. Then, he jumped from the Quasi-Emperor realm to the Emperor realm. Chapter 1996. The big shots in the field were all stiff and shocked. The aura of the Emperor realm? At this moment, Lu Dubu's power seemed to be supreme. In the battlefield, Lin Sun's pupils also condensed, and his mind had a rare turbulence. This must be fake. Lin Sun was very sure of this. If Lu Dubu stepped into the Emperor realm, how could he participate in the Yunzhou Tao discussion? What really surprised Lin Sun was that with his many years of battle experience, he couldn't see through the flaws. This could only prove that the aura of the Emperor realm emerging from Lu Dubu was too real. Boom! Lu Dubu moved like a god who controlled the universe. With a wave of his hand, the sun and moon were overturned, and the latitude and longitude were reversed. The incomparably bright Taoist light turned into a magnificent and vast torrent and shrouded Lin Sun. Countless people broke out in a cold sweat as their hair stood on end. This kind of battle power was definitely not something that a peak Saint King could master. Jin Di was in danger, but at this moment, Lin Sun suddenly smiled. Around him, there was red divine light sweeping up, and a burning aura was released. He, who was originally as heavy as a mountain, seemed to have turned into a god of fire bathed in divine flames. Violent, wanton, and flamboyant, instead of retreating, he rushed forward like a sea of fire that covered the sky, burning fiercely and collided with the oncoming torrent. Boom! Lu Dubu's attack, full of the power of the Emperor realm, turned into ashes inch by inch in the terrifying sound of collision, and was completely incinerated. The whole audience was shocked. Some people realized at this moment that the power of Lu Dubu, full of the power of the Emperor realm, was obviously not real. Otherwise, how could it be defeated so easily? Kill. But when Lu Dubu attacked again, setting off a sky full of light rain, everyone was in a trance again. The power of the Emperor realm in the attack rushed towards them, making them all feel frightened and depressed. How could this be fake? Many people were about to be confused. Was Lu Dubu, who was like an Emperor realm existence, real or fake? But then, their minds and eyes were completely attracted by Lin Sun's movement. His figure was like fire, attacking like the wind. Everywhere he passed, all of Lu Dubu's attacks were incinerated and turned into ashes. The terrifying power that was filled with the aura of an emperor seemed extremely weak before him. This was undoubtedly incredible. Looks like although Lu Dubu's power seems terrifying like the Emperor realm, it isn't real. At this point, many people came to an understanding, and their faces were covered in shock. Even if it was fake, but when it was a true battle, who could distinguish it? And if Lu Dubu, who controlled this kind of mysterious power, were to display this kind of power when caught off guard, even a quasi-emperor would be shocked and scared to the point of losing their minds. Have you all noticed? This Jin Dui has also changed. Previously, he was as steady as a mountain, giving off an unshakable feeling. But now, he is as violent as fire, wantonly and unrestrained. The power that he releases is filled with the terrifying power of incineration and destruction. It's as if he has become another person. Someone said emotionally. Actually, there was no need to remind them. Everyone present had noticed this scene as well, and all of their minds were shaken and unable to calm down. Boom! On the battlefield, the situation of the battle became more and more intense. Lin Sun's cultivation method became more and more rapid. He was like fire, burning the sky and destroying the earth, violent and overbearing, running and attacking wantonly on the battlefield. On the other hand, although Lu Dubu's power was frighteningly terrifying, but in the battle, he showed signs of being defeated step by step. Why does this guy suddenly seem to have changed into another person? Lu Dubu's expression was already filled with surprise. A few days ago, he had focused on studying Lin Sun's fighting methods and fighting style, and thought that he had already seen through most of Lin Sun's details. But who would have thought that in today's battle, whether it was Lin Sun's momentum or fighting methods, they had completely changed, as if he was a completely different person. In this way, even he felt unprepared. In fact, whether it was Lu Dubu or the other people present, they simply did not know that Lin Sun had been using the yellow Taoist body. And today, he was using the red fire Taoist body. The talent power of the two Taoist bodies, as well as the fighting style, were naturally completely different. Boom! A rain of fire came attacking. Lu Dubu had just resolved this attack, but Lin Sun had already moved through the void, raising his fist to attack. His whole body was surging with divine flames, and wisps of fire were floating on his hair, bright and dazzling, incomparably terrifying. After a dull collision sound, Lu Dubu's divine flames swayed, and he staggered back a few steps. The clothes on his chest were all burned, leaving a scorched mark. In the midst of the exclamation, Lin Sun's offensive was like a storm, and the flames that burst out from his fist covered the sky and the sun, drowning Lu Dubu entirely. All of a sudden, Lu Dubu completely fell into a passive disadvantage. Isn't this kid a little too strong? Guansu's expression was solemn. The other bigwigs also revealed a surprised expression. Today's Jin Dui was completely different from before, which made them all feel that it was unimaginable. They could not imagine how a person's fighting power could have such a big change. Everything is an illusion. My Tao is the truth. Suddenly, Lu Dubu let out a long roar and used his trump card. His figure suddenly turned into an illusory rain of light, and the rain of light turned into the sun, the moon, the mountains and rivers, the sky and the earth, and the things that happened in the world, all kinds of strange phenomena, imprinted with the wonderful power of the Tao, shrouded Lin Sun together, as if suppressing him in a side of the world. The body turned into the Tao domain. This was the power of floating like a dream to the extreme perfection, being trapped, and it was like a person fighting against a complete world. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly stopped moving, slightly raised his head, and a pair of eyes opened and closed, and horrible scenes emerged. In the end, two beams of fiery light shot out from his eyes and swept out. Boom! In this floating like a dream world, wherever the fire passed, everything was destroyed, turned into ashes, and disappeared. The sky and earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the changes of all things were all burned into ashes and smelted by the terrible fire. In the end, the whole world suddenly sank, bursting with endless fire, burning the sky and destroying the earth, turning everything into ashes. This was the eyes of burning ashes. Ah, on the battlefield, there was a cry of pain. Lu Dubu's figure rushed out of the fire rain in a sorry state. His clothes were full of holes, and his exposed skin was burnt black. He looked extremely miserable. The whole audience was silent, and even the sound of a needle falling could be heard. Everyone's faces were filled with shock, and their minds were in turmoil. Lu Dubu, he was defeated. Such a legendary figure, who had long been famous in Cloud Province and was as dazzling as the sun in the sky, had always been regarded as the pride of Cloud Province. But today, on the top of Immortal Martial Peak, he was defeated by Jin Duyi. Looking at him, screaming in a sorry state, looking at his burned body, everyone had a surreal feeling like they were in a dream. When the fire dissipated, the battlefield returned to calm. Lu Dubu gasped for a while, and then said bitterly, "Brother Jean is more skilled. I lost." All the heroes looked at him, and for a moment, they were shocked, speechless. There's always someone better than you out there. Dubu, it's not wrong for you to lose. When the curtains of the gathering of the Tao discussion begin, there will definitely be more peerless figures like Jin Dui. You can't be depressed like this, Guan Su said in a low voice. Lu Dubu was the pride of Cloud Province, and also the pride of Great Void Sect. Guan Su couldn't help but worry whether such a great defeat would affect Lu Dubu's state of mind. "Headmaster, don't worry about me." Lu Dubu cupped his hands, and then turned to walk down the battlefield. Seeing that his expression was still calm, Guan Su breathed a sigh of relief, and said, "You take a rest, and then fight with Wu Huang in a quarter of an hour." Lu Dubu nodded, sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to meditate. Lin Sun walked down the arena. But when they looked at him again, everyone's expression became subtle. Lu Dubu was unrivaled in the world. Jin Dui was unique. In the battle between the two, Jin Dui won in the end. This result made everyone realize that this young man, who came out as a dark horse in the first round of selection, was far more mysterious than they had imagined. At this moment, Xie Yuhua thought of Lady Yu's words again. It was not too much to overestimate Jin Duyi. A quarter of an hour later, Lu Dubu stepped onto the battlefield again, but his opponent was Wu Huang. If he lost this battle, he was destined to be ranked third, behind Lin Sun and Wu Huang. "Lu Dubu, I have seen all your trump cards. You will definitely lose this battle," Wu Huang said indifferently. He was dressed in a black robe, and his long hair was loose. There was a frightening and strange luster in his gray-brown eyes. "Is that so? Let's wait and see." Lu Dubu's expression was calm. Boom! Wu Huang attacked without hesitation. His figure flickered, and like a shadow, he attacked Lu Dubu in a strange and unpredictable manner. In his palm, a bronze wheel spun, emitting a bloody and thick divine light. The aura it emitted was so terrifying that it changed the color of heaven and earth. This time, he directly used an Emperor artifact. Obviously, he did not intend to be entangled with Lu Dubu, because in the next battle, he still had a fight with Lin Sun. If he could finish the battle quickly, he could save a lot of energy. Ridiculous! Do you think I don't have an Emperor artifact? Lu Dubu revealed a trace of mockery. Before he finished speaking, a pagoda rose into the sky. It was ancient and emitted a primitive aura. The Great Void Path Pagoda. In an instant, everyone at the scene recognized this treasure, because the second round of selection would be conducted in this pagoda. However, no one expected that this treasure would be used by Lu Dubu at this moment. It should be known that this was the ultimate treasure of the Great Void Path sect. It was rumored that it was a mysterious antique that came from an unknown place. Wu Huang's eyes narrowed. He was obviously a little surprised. Without waiting for him to react, the bronze wheel and the Great Void Path Pagoda had already clashed. The two terrifying treasures clashed, and it was as if two gods were fighting. The former flowed with billions of bloody divine light, and it transformed into a door that was like a bloody purgatory, oppressing the world. On the other hand, the Great Void Path Pagoda shot out rays of divine light that shot into the sky and spread in all directions. Its power was similarly terrifying. Chapter 1997. Swoosh. The bronze wheel rotated, the dense blood markings on its surface spraying out billions of blood-colored divine rainbows. It was as thick as a long, bloody river dancing wildly. That terrifying aura surged with the power that belonged to an emperor treasure. This treasure was Wu Huang's trump card. It was called the Blood Prison Divine Wheel. If it was used in the hands of an Emperor Realm expert, it could even open up a blood prison world, suppress everything, and refine all spirits. But the Great Void Tao Refinement Pagoda was not inferior. This pagoda grew in the wind, becoming 33 feet tall. The body of the pagoda looked like it was made of liquid bronze, showing a primitive and ancient aura. Around it, rays of divine light shot out, shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The two treasures clashed, causing the entire battlefield to shake. The destructive aura wreaked havoc. Just looking at it from afar, it made one's heart jump and their scalp go numb. Thorn of God blood. After a moment, suddenly, Wu Huang grabbed with his palm. Wang. A bright red, 9-inch sharp light condensed, piercing through the air, disappearing in a flash. Then Lu Dubu, who was hundreds of feet away, shook violently, a pained expression appearing on his face. The Great Void Tao Refinement Pagoda that was originally controlled by him showed signs of losing control. At this moment, Wu Huang had already broken through the air to attack. His figure was like a flash of gray lightning, suddenly appearing in front of Lu Dubu. He ruthlessly slapped out with his palm. With a bang, even though Lu Dubu reacted in time and used his arms to block, the power of this palm was extremely terrifying. Under this strike, the flesh and bones of his arms were all shattered. His entire body felt like it was hit by a divine mountain, and he flew out violently. Before he landed on the ground, he was already coughing out blood. Not good. There was a wave of exclamations. The expressions of many important figures changed, and they stood up. Seeing that Wu Huang had already taken the opportunity to attack again, Lu Dubu suddenly let out a long roar, and a flying sword suddenly flew out from his body. Shua! The flying sword lightly flashed, and Wu Huang was actually unable to dodge it. A layer of flesh was sliced off from his shoulder. Fresh blood splattered, and white bones could be seen. You're courting death. Wu Huang's eyes were cold, and he charged forward in a domineering manner. In his palm, that 9-inch sharp red light condensed once again and shot out explosively. Lu Dubu's body shook, and his face turned pale. His eyes were filled with pain. Closely after, he was sent flying by Wu Huang's palm. Puff! Lu Dubu coughed up blood. He was seriously injured. Everyone shuddered with fear, and they felt an indescribable horror. All of them were able to discern that the wisp of captivating red light Wu Huang executed was the crux that caused Lu Dubu to suffer a heavy injury. That's enough. Guansu suddenly spoke and waved his sleeve. The Great Void Refinement Tao Pagoda burst out with a terrifying divine light and blocked in front of Lu Dubu. It also blocked Wu Huang's attack. The corners of Wu Huang's lips curled up into a cold smile, and he immediately stopped attacking. He was also clear that on this battlefield, It was simply impossible for him to have the chance to kill Lu Dubu. That treasure doesn't belong to you at all. On the battlefield, Lu Dubu's face was deathly pale, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Humph. A loss is a loss. Do you still need to find excuses for yourself? Lu Dubu, don't make me look down on you. Wu Huang's expression was cold. Lu Dubu's expression flickered as he said, "It's nothing to rely on external objects to win, but if you rely on external force to win, then it's despicable." With that, he turned around and walked off the arena. Everyone present was surprised and bewildered. External objects naturally refer to treasures similar to the Great Void Refinement Tao Pagoda. But what did external force refer to? Could it be that there was an unknown mystery in that bright red light? But no matter what, Lu Dubu still lost in the end. At this point, he could only settle for third place. This result caused all the great figures present to sigh endlessly, because no one would have thought that a peerless figure like Lu Dubu would only be able to stop at third place. Xie Yuhua, Wang Tu, Su Muhan, and the others all had solemn expressions. Lu Dubu's crushing defeat was full of mysteries. If they were to really compete in battle strength, it was impossible for him to be defeated so quickly. There was only one reason. The trump card that Wu Huang had grasped was too strange and unpredictable. Taoist Lan, your profound void divine island has produced an extraordinary successor. TSK, this method is really powerful. Heng Xiao suddenly spoke. Taoist Lan's expression changed slightly. Heng Xiao, don't try to drive a wedge between us. This is only a sparring selection. Wu Huang did not go all out. All right, the two of you don't have to say anything more. The successor of my great void divine sect can afford to lose. I, Guansu, will not be dissatisfied with my own successor's defeat. Guansu said in a low voice. Taoist Lan's expression relaxed slightly. He knew Wu Huang's background the best. Wu Huang dared to offend the great void divine sect without restraint. But the profound void divine island did not dare. Guansu would not hate the profound void divine island because of Lu Dubu's defeat. That was naturally the best. Heng Xiao smiled, but he secretly swore in his heart. If Jin Di were to be defeated like this in the next duel with Wu Huang, he would definitely not let the matter rest. He might even announce Wu Huang's background on the spot. Even if he would be targeted by the divine Sunlight Ancient Sect, he would not hesitate. In 15 minutes, Jin Di will fight against Wu Huang, Guansu announced. This also meant that the first and second place of this Yunzhou martial competition would also be decided in this duel. Brother Jin, you have to be careful of the treasure in Wu Huang's hand. It is full of unpredictable and strange power that can cause great harm to the spirit. It is impossible to guard against. Lu Dubu suddenly transmitted his voice to remind Lin Sun. Lin Sun was startled and said, "Thank you." He had also seen the previous battle. He knew very well that although the bronze wheel was terrifying, what was more alarming was the bright red 9-inch blade. However, Lin Sun did not expect that Lu Dubu would take the initiative to remind him. Although it seems like I'm trying to please you for no reason, I'm really a little unwilling to accept the previous battle with Wu Huang. Brother Jin, don't think too much about it. Lu Dubu's voice was bitter. Lin Sun nodded. Unwilling. This was normal. A quarter of an hour later, Lin Sun got up and walked into the battlefield. He looked calm and composed. Wu Huang's figure flashed and appeared on the other side of the battlefield. As the two entered the battlefield, the eyes of all the people present were attracted to them. Jin Di, a young man who constantly created all kinds of miracles like a dark horse, was a peerless figure that people couldn't see through until now. Between him and Wu Huang, who would win the first place in the Yunzhou martial competition? At this moment, Heng Xiao and Jintian Xinhua were also holding their breath. It was not that they lacked confidence in Lin Sun, but that Wu Huang was so powerful that they had to pay attention to this battle. Jin Di, I guarantee that you will lose miserably in this battle. I won't stop unless you take the initiative to admit defeat. Wu Huang's expression was cold, and his tone was cold, with a frightening murderous intent. Many people's hearts tightened. This was the first time since the selection of the Tao discussion that Wu Huang had targeted a person like this, and he didn't hide his killing intent at all. Lin Sun said with a smile. It was just a word, but it gave people a wonderful feeling of contempt. It seemed that he didn't even bother to use words to attack the opponent. Wu Huang pointed at Lin Sun from a distance and made a gesture in front of his neck, which was a silent provocation. Bang! In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. At the same time, the blood prison wheel soared into the sky, and it spun madly amidst the buzzing sound and splashed a myriad of bloody light rain. Lin Sun's figure was instantly drowned by the bloody light like a straw in a storm, and it seemed as if he would be overturned at any time. Kill! The terrifying thing was that Wu Huang's figure suddenly appeared and swung his fist to kill. The bloody fist energy was like a thunderbolt that fell from the sky, and it was extremely strong and overbearing. Get lost! Amidst the bloody light shadows, Lin Sun, who was obviously on the verge of being overturned, revealed a wisp of ridicule and coldness. As he pressed out his palm, bang! The bloody light rain nearby exploded with a bang and turned into ashes that drifted in the air, and Wu Huang's punch also exploded inch by inch. Then, Wu Huang was fiercely slapped away like a fly. All the people present looked sideways, and many people revealed astonished expressions. Under the suppression of the Emperor Treasure, Jin Di, who was barehanded, actually defeated Wu Huang's attack in one fell swoop. It's really unexpected. Hung Xiao couldn't help but click his tongue. This martial uncle of the patriarch was too abnormal. Humph! Wu Huang's eyes flickered, and there was a strange divine light flowing out when he opened and closed his eyes, which was extremely frightening. Buzz! With a move of his mind, the blood prison wheel shone brightly, rotated wildly, and rushed towards Lin Sun from the void. Wu Huang's figure disappeared again, as if he had evaporated into thin air. No one outside the field could catch his trace. Only the blazing and bloody divine wheel rumbled as it crushed down. There was no way to avoid it. Although the battlefield was large, it was completely covered by the power of the blood prison wheel at this time. The void in all directions could not bear its power and collapsed with a bang. At this time, Lin Sun was still barehanded. This made everyone nervous. Some attentive people suddenly realized that no matter what kind of opponent Jin Di encountered in the selection of Tao these days, Jin Di had never used any external objects from beginning to end. Was it because he didn't have a suitable treasure? Impossible. How could such an amazing and peerless figure have no treasure at all? Before everyone could react, clang! An ear-piercing collision sound suddenly rang out and surged through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Everyone trembled all over, their eardrums stung, and their blood and qi all over their body were rolling. Those big shots only felt their hearts palpitate and their pupils constricted. Lin Sun, who was in the battlefield, actually charged up to meet the attack head-on, and his fist collided with the blood-hell divine wheel that smashed down towards him, causing boundless divine radiance to erupt. The peerless and arrogant posture shocked everyone present. That was an emperor treasure, but at this time, it was blocked by Lin Sun's fist in the void. Such a scene was also completely beyond everyone's imagination. But at this time, Wu Huang, who had disappeared, suddenly appeared behind Lin Sun and raised his fist to attack. His appearance was silent and undetectable. This punch was also soundless and traceless. There was no fluctuation of aura at all, as if all the power was condensed into this punch, which looked extremely strange. All the strongmen who witnessed this scene suddenly changed their faces. The timing that Wu Huang chose for this attack was simply marvelous to the extreme. Chapter 1998. Lin Sun didn't look back, as if he didn't notice it. But behind him, a crystal-clear rain of swords appeared, and the dense Taishian sword chi suddenly burst out. Boom! Amidst the world-shaking sounds of collision, Wu Huang's soundless punch was completely dissolved. Moreover, the dense flow of sword chi forced Wu Huang to have no choice but to dodge and retreat. Everyone who was originally tense secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The scene from before was simply too thrilling. Wu Huang stretched out his hand and took back the bloody hell wheel. At the same time, he moved again, faster than lightning. His right arm burst in a gray light mist, and he swung the bloody hell wheel at Lin's Sun. The void roared as if it was about to collapse. The Emperor's messenger from the Divine Sunshine sect became extremely overbearing, especially the bloody hell wheel in his hand, which was full of destruction. Lin Sun's eyes flashed, and behind him, endless red light appeared. It was bright red and full of the power of incineration. The talent of Scarlet Flame Taoist body was the eyes of burning ashes, but in addition, it could also deduce all kinds of Taoism that Lin Sun had mastered. In short, the only difference between Scarlet Flame Taoist body and himself was that he didn't have spiritual veins, but he had the talent of the eyes of burning ashes. His hands moved about, and he casually executed boundlessly marvelous Tao techniques that were terrifying to the heavens. In a flash, the two had fought hundreds of times. People were surprised to find that even if Jin Di was barehanded, his power had never been suppressed in a head-on collision. How terrible the bloody hell wheel was, and how powerful Wu Huang was, but in the fierce attack, he couldn't do anything to Jin Di. Just where did this monster come from? Isn't he a little too heaven-defying? Someone gasped. Lu Dubu, Xie Yuhua, and others were also excited. This Jin Di really gave them too many surprises. The power that he displayed in every battle was beyond their expectations. Yin's shattering finger. On the battlefield, Wu Huang shouted and suddenly pointed his finger forward. The finger power was as black as ink, with a strange gloss, as if it could destroy everything. Lin Sun stretched his body and pressed out his finger. Instant of spring and autumn. However, the finger attack unleashed by the Scarlet Flame Daoist physique seemed to have been reduced to ashes in the flames, displaying a terrifying destructive power. Boom! The two of them collided, and the force of the two fingers rumbled while divine radiance shot out in all directions. Before finishing his moves, Lin Sun's whole body seemed to be on fire. He pushed forward fiercely and performed a shaking sky punch with the momentum of killing. From afar, his entire body was glowing like a living furnace in a chaotic world. Wu Huang staggered back with a bang. He was struck by the force of the punch to the point his vital energy and blood roiled, and the clothes on his body were almost incinerated. The crowd was in an uproar. Wu Huang was actually showing signs of being suppressed. Very good. Wu Huang was enraged. His eyes were intimidating as he unleashed his true flames. His black hair was disheveled as he raised his head and roared. The sound waves were like thunder, causing one's blood to churn. In the blink of an eye, a pair of gray wings sprouted from his body, and his head transformed into that of a bird's. Bright bird! Someone cried out in alarm. This was an archaic, great vicious being, a rarely seen bird. It had 4 pairs of strange pupils, and its vicious might was outstanding. Obviously, this was Wu Huang's real body. Lin Sun seemed to be indifferent to this. He performed his own Tao and Dharma, and the red divine flame covered the sky and the earth, causing this place to boil. Black, white, cyan, and purple beams of light shot out from Wu Huang's 4 pairs of eyes respectively, and they performed a strange and unpredictable killing diagram of 4 symbols and soared into the sky. Boom! The Tao of the two collided with each other, and the divine radiance was flying everywhere. It was earth-shattering, and it made people's hearts surge with excitement. Both sides were very strong and refused to take a step back. They charged forward with indomitable momentum and performed a thrilling and unparalleled battle. As a messenger of the Emperor, Wu Huang was conceited and proud. He didn't believe that anyone could surpass him in the Saint King realm. Kill! His eyes were cold, and his breath changed again. One hand was covered with rolling black mist, controlling the bloody hell wheel, and his 4 pairs of eyes were shining with divine light, piercing through the sky and the earth. Seeing this, Lin Sun finally stopped holding back. Boom! In countless acupoints in his body, blazing Taishan sword chi appeared one after another, flowing in his blood and making his ears ring. Then, his entire being became sharp, as if a peerless immortal sword had appeared in the world, revealing its sharpness and surging killing intent. What a terrible breath. Is this the real strength of this boy? All the big shots couldn't sit still and showed a look of shock. Lu Dubu, Xie Yuhua, and the others were also stunned. Their minds were fiercely shaken. In their eyes, the current Jin Duyi was completely different. Previously, he was violent like fire, unbridled and arrogant. But now he was dazzling, peerless, and peerless. Kill! Wu Huang also noticed that something was wrong and suddenly shouted. His hair fluttered, and the bloody hell wheel in his palm was buzzing, surging between the heaven and the earth. At this moment, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and the Taishian sword Qi all over the sky whistled out. 10 direction, sword rain. Every single strand of sword Qi was crimson red like flames, and they were peerlessly gorgeous. Moreover, they emanated a world-shocking sharp aura of incineration. Boom! The two collided, and in an instant, the sound of explosions was endless. Under the killing of countless sword Qi, Wu Huang's figure was suppressed and kept retreating. In the end, his whole body was chopped off and almost fell from the battlefield. Everyone's heart beat wildly, and they were shocked again and again. Up to now, these two people had constantly changed their means and displayed what could be called the peak fighting methods. The fierceness of the battle was rarely seen in the world. Some people even sighed inwardly. In the peerless Holy King realm, the two had deduced the road to the top to a terrible level. Not to mention ordinary people, even the top people in the world were destined to be overshadowed. And at this time, the scene of Wu Huang being suppressed was even more shocking. How terrible was it to be suppressed with an emperor weapon in hand? Is this your real strength? It's not bad, but unfortunately, you are doomed to lose this time. Wu Huang's expression became extremely cold, and his eyes were full of coldness and killing intent. On his body, an inexplicable breath circulated and finally broke out like a mountain torrent, making his momentum even stronger. Boom! In just a moment, Wu Huang's breath was completely different. His spiritual power surged, his hair poured down like a waterfall, and his 4 pairs of eyes were steaming with strange, colorful divine light. An invisible field formed around his whole body, rotating around him. This was an amazing breath, like a resurrected god looking down on the world. Boom! When Wu Huang raised his hand, the law intertwined, and lightning flashed and thunder roared in an instant. Such momentum, not to mention his peers, even those big shots gasped. They were keenly aware that Wu Huang was likely to break the realm at any time. He had already reached the peak of the peerless Holy King realm, but he was suppressing it. Obviously, he suppressed his cultivation for the Tao discussion grand meeting. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. Even he had to admit that the power shown by Wu Huang had successfully aroused his inner fighting spirit. With a bang, divine rays flew up and electric arcs intertwined. Wu Huang made a move, using a secret method. He pinched his hand, and a bloody portal appeared in front of him. This portal was extremely vague, but the bloody breath it exuded was terrifying and amazing. This was his Tao field, called Bloodthirsty Gate. A gate seemed to communicate with the power of a mysterious world, where blood flowed like a river and was covered with endless blood. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked and extremely surprised. This was also the first time that Wu Huang had fully exposed his Tao field. What do you have to compete with me? I'm strong enough to kill you, Wu Huang said with cold and ruthless eyes and harsh words. You talk a lot of nonsense. Lin Sun's body was shining, and his spirit was boiling. Boom! The bloodthirsty gate arrived and covered the sky with monstrous terror. At this moment, Lin Sun simply punched out. This punch was like a furnace, like an abyss, but not an abyss. It was surging with unpredictable flames, and the breath it exuded was extremely frightening. The power of the Tao field at the peak. One could see with the naked eye that the bloodthirsty gate suddenly trembled violently under this punch, after which it exploded with a bang. The rain of light that filled the sky was shattered by the unparalleled force of the punch, and was annihilated in the void. Boom! Caught off guard, Wu Huang was blown away again, bleeding from his 7 orifices. If he hadn't tried his best to resolve it, he would have been seriously injured by this blow. His expression changed greatly, and he was inexplicably shocked. He had already used his strongest means, and the power of the bloodthirsty gate had been praised by the emperors. But now it was actually blocked. How amazing was this? Outside the arena, everyone was stunned, their faces filled with disbelief. Every time Wu Huang attacked, it could be said to be world-shaking. But every time, he was defeated by Jin Dui, which was incredible. Moreover, Wu Huang was injured at this time. "What do you have to compete with me?" Lin Sun said indifferently. His words made Wu Huang's face gloomy, because he had despised Lin Sun before. "Now I'll make you lose." In Wu Huang's palm, a bright red 9-inch blade suddenly condensed and flashed away in the void. Everyone present changed their expressions. This move again. In the previous battle with Lu Dubu, Wu Huang had relied on this move to finally defeat Lu Dubu. The most terrible thing was that this move was completely impossible to guard against. It was so strange that no one could see the mystery in it. Sure enough, Lin Sun, who was about to dodge, suddenly stopped and frowned. The situation he encountered was almost the same as that of Lu Dubu at that time. Not good. Lu Dubu's heart thumped. He knew best that the bright red blade would directly penetrate into his sea of consciousness and soul. It was filled with a terrible and strange power, which didn't belong to Wu Huang at all, but it was extremely powerful. As powerful as he had suffered a big loss. And now, Jin Dui was obviously also hit. Lose. Wu Huang rushed forward and seized the opportunity to appear in front of Lin Sun at the first time. The blood prison wheel in his palm rotated rapidly and chopped at Lin Sun's head. If Lin Sun was hit, the consequences would be unimaginable. Guan Su and Hung Xiao, who were outside the field, looked dignified. After sensing that something was wrong, they were ready to help before it happened. After all, this was the selection of Tao discussion, not a battle of life and death. Who would watch a peerless figure like Jin Dui be killed? At least, Hung Xiao would not agree first. Chapter 1999. When the 9-inch blade appeared in Lin Sun's sea of consciousness, a strange force spread out. The power was domineering, fierce, and horrifying. However, Lin Sun had been prepared for it. Without hesitation, he ran the great meditating magic, and the Dharma form of his spiritual soul bloomed with boundless light. The top 3 paths included the 3 paths of soul refining, chi refining, and body refining. Lin Sun had taken into account the top 3 paths long before he stepped into the king's realm. The power of his soul was no less than that of the top soul practitioners in the same realm. But in a moment, Lin Sun's face changed slightly, because even though that wisp of scarlet red light was blocked, it suddenly flashed, and it faintly transformed into a blurry figure that was almost ethereal. Lin Sun's soul was depressed, and he felt extremely frightened by the aura it emitted. At this time, Lin Sun finally understood why Lu Dubu was so unwilling to admit that Wu Huang won with the help of external forces, not external objects, because the power of this red blade didn't belong to Wu Huang at all. Boom! As soon as the vague shadow appeared, it turned into a bloody light and stabbed at Lin Sun's soul like a bright red sword. Suppress. At this critical moment, Lin Sun thought of something. The gate to heaven, which had been standing silently in the depths of his sea of consciousness, suddenly made a roar, as if it had awakened from a deep sleep for thousands of years. Immediately afterward, an obscure power swept out from the gate to heaven. Bang! The bloody light suddenly burst into pieces like a piece of paper. Damn it! What kind of treasure is this? A furious and hoarse voice resounded, and the blurry figure seemed to be too frightened and fled without the slightest hesitation. But he still underestimated the horror of the gate to heaven. With the spread of the obscure force, the vague shadow instantly turned into ashes and was erased in Lin's sea of consciousness. Everything happened incredibly fast, even though it seemed slow. It was only a moment from the scarlet sharpness breaking into his sea of consciousness to being erased, but only Lin Sun himself could understand the danger of it. At this time, Wu Huang had already controlled the bloody hell wheel to break through the air and kill. Everyone in the audience tensed up. Hung Xiao, Guan Su, and the other big shots were ready to lend a hand. At this time, a large abyss of fire emerged around Lin Sun's figure, with the momentum to devour all directions. Boom! The blood prison divine wheel, which was circulating with billions of bloody lights, was blocked by the inferno abyss. The collision between the two produced a rumbling sound that sounded like muffled thunder. At this time, Lin Sun had turned around, his dark eyes deep. He flicked his finger. The Taishian sword chi whizzed out like a storm. How could Wu Huang have imagined that his sure-kill blow would be blocked? This had already surprised him. Now, with Lin Sun's attack, he was caught off guard. Wu Huang's attack was fast, but it was even faster. His body felt as if it had been slashed by tens of thousands of swords. With a boom, he was sent flying backward, causing the void to collapse. His hair was disheveled, and blood sprayed from his mouth and nose. He was in an extremely sorry state, and the bloody hell divine will almost flew out of his hand. How did you block it? Disbelief was written all over his face. The Thorn of God Blood. That was his trump card. It was strange, horrible, and always successful. But now, Jin Di was not hurt at all, which made him unable to believe it. The audience was silent. The originally tense mind of the people present was turbulent at this moment, unable to calm down. The bright red sharpness that had caused Lu Dubu's crushing defeat did not do anything to Lin Sun, which made them all feel shocked. On the other hand, Hung Xiao, Guan Su, and the other great figures who originally intended to lend a hand heaved a sigh of relief, but they were also shocked. Without this kind of external help, how long can you struggle for? As he spoke, Lin Sun pushed forward without hesitation. Around him, the Taishian sword chi was dense like a torrent of rainstorm, flowing ceaselessly, clanging, and blooming with earth-shaking, peerless sharpness. This also made his momentum more blazing and frightening. Boom! Lin Sun rushed forward. At this moment, he no longer held back, and the demeanor he showed was different from before. For a time, the sword chi crisscrossed on the battlefield, and even the void was torn into shocking cracks. In a flash, Wu Huang was suppressed and dwarfed. It didn't take long for him to be unable to raise his head and suffer repeated setbacks. So strong. Jin Di is fighting back. There was a burst of exclamation in the field. Everyone's face was full of shock, awed by Lin Sun's invincible fighting posture. Lu Dubu, Xie Yuhua, Su Muhan, and others were all in a complicated mood. Until now, how could they not understand that compared with Jin Di, they were undoubtedly a little dimmer? The outstanding people in the world were often divided by whether they set foot on the peerless path or not. But among the peerless figures, there was also a difference between the high and the low. Characters like Helian Qi, Yuan He, and Lan Yunke could roughly be regarded as first-class figures in the same realm. Like Su Muhan, Wang Tu, and Xie Yuhua, they could be regarded as the top existences in the same realm, just like the dazzling geniuses in the eyes of the world. As for Lu Dubu and Wu Huang, they were like peerless geniuses born with great luck. Each of them was as bright as the sun. But these geniuses and outstanding figures were destined to be dimmed in front of Jin Di. He was like a monster that couldn't be measured by common sense. He had a nature-defying talent, an unfathomable foundation, and an outstanding demeanor. Even now, no one was able to tell exactly where his limit was, because no matter in the battle with Lu Dubu or in the duel with Wu Huang at this time, he had never been injured, shaken, or suppressed. This was undoubtedly very terrifying. Boom! On the battlefield, Wu Huang was defeated again. He was suppressed by Lin Sun's palm force, and his body was smashed to the ground. The dull sound made many people feel pain. Wu Huang's mouth and nose were bleeding. His face was livid, and his eyes were about to crack. He roared, and his figure burst out. His whole body was steaming with gray mist. His whole body seemed to be burning, and his power became more and more terrifying. From the beginning of cultivation to the present, as the Emperor's messenger of the divine sunshine ancient sect, he had always been confident and arrogant. He thought that there were only a few people in the same realm who could fight with him in the world, and he had never suffered such a setback. But now, in the Tao discussion of Yinzhou, he was repeatedly frustrated in the battle against Jin Dui, who he had never heard of before. This made him unable to calm down, and he was furious. Kill! He activated his secret method, and his 4 pairs of eyes shot out divine light, deducing the power of his own Tao field. The power was terrible and monstrous. But just for a moment, with a dull roar, Lin Sun punched down from the sky, and Wu Huang was smashed to the ground. Countless bones in his back had been broken, and they emitted crackling sounds of explosions. Moreover, numerous bloody scars that had cracked open appeared on his body, and it was a horrifying sight. Too fierce, some big shots couldn't help but change their faces, and their bodies became stiff. At this time, Jin Dui was like an invincible existence in the Saint King realm, sweeping across the field and sweeping away all obstacles. It turns out that he didn't use his full strength from beginning to end when he fought with me. Lu Dubu felt bitter in his heart. He was unwilling to be defeated by Wu Huang because Wu Huang used external force. But after being defeated by Lin Sun and witnessing Lin Sun's power at this time, Lu Dubu couldn't be unconvinced. I had some regrets that I didn't fight with Jin Dui, but now it seems that even if I fight with him, I don't have much chance of winning. Xie Yuhua also sighed in her heart. Peerless figures like her were all proud and unyielding. It was undoubtedly too difficult for them to admit that someone was stronger than them. But obviously, Lin Sun was an exception at this time. Bang! On the battlefield, Wu Huang was kicked away. His jaw was broken, and his flesh was badly mutilated. He groaned in pain. On the other hand, Lin Sun's figure was bright, and his momentum was like a rainbow. He was unharmed from beginning to end. Everyone could see that Wu Huang was powerless in this battle. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Wu Huang's chest to be pierced by a wisp of sword qi. If he hadn't dodged in time, this sword would have pierced through his heart. Wu Huang was furious to the point of madness. He was determined to win first place, but now he was beaten up like a dog. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he was so ashamed and angry that he was about to explode. But no matter how he struggled and resisted, it was all useless. The blood prison divine wheel couldn't. The bloodthirsty gate couldn't. Even if he risked his life, it still wouldn't work. He was completely suppressed by Lin Sun and beaten violently. In fact, Lin Sun didn't attack ruthlessly at all. Otherwise, with Wu Huang's ability, it would be impossible for him to hold on until now. The reason was that Lin Sun knew very well that this was the selection of Tao. Even if he knew that his opponent was the successor of the divine sunshine ancient sect, he had no chance to kill him under such circumstances. After all, whether it was Guan Su or the other big shots present, it was impossible for them to tolerate death in the selection of Tao. Since he couldn't kill him, he could only beat him up to vent his anger. Bang! As the battle continued, Wu Huang grew more and more miserable. His clothes were ragged, his hair was disheveled, and his entire body was covered in cracks and bleeding wounds. Many people couldn't help but reveal expressions of pity and pity. Just a moment ago, he was so arrogant, haughty, and insufferably arrogant. Yet now, he was completely miserable after being abused. Especially Taoist Lan, he was completely stunned. Every time Wu Huang was suppressed, his expression changed indeterminately. Stop! At this moment, he finally couldn't help but speak out with the intention of stopping this battle, because he truly couldn't bear to see Wu Huang being abused. Lin Sun turned a deaf ear to him. At the beginning, Wu Huang had said that he wouldn't stop unless Lin Sun admitted defeat. What Lin Sun wanted to do now was to give Wu Huang a taste of his own medicine. Bang! Dense Tai-Xian sword qi whistled down like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens, and it was dazzling and illuminated the world. Under the stimulation of the boundlessly terrifying and fierce aura, Wu Huang, who'd been heavily injured a long time ago, finally felt terrified, and he realized that if he didn't admit defeat, then he was bound to lose his life. "I admit defeat," he howled, and his voice seemed as if it was squeezed out from the cracks between his teeth. Whoosh! The sword chi that covered the sky suddenly stopped 3 feet away from Wu Huang's head. God is 3 feet above his head. Chapter 2000. I give up. Wu Huang's angry and frightened voice reverberated between heaven and earth. There was a dead silence in the field. Everyone's gazes were filled with shock as they gathered on the arena. There, Wu Huang sat paralyzed on the ground. His clothes were ragged, and he was wounded and bathed in blood. He looked extremely miserable, and above his head, a piece of crystal clear, burning sword chi was arranged densely, shining with a frightening and sharp luster. Not far away, Lin Sun's figure was ethereal like an immortal. Wu Huang was beaten until he was unable to resist and was seriously injured and dying. Lin Sun even tortured him to admit defeat. All the people who witnessed this scene were shocked and speechless. Wu Huang lost. He had lost so badly that he had lost all face in front of Jin Duyi. Clatter. Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and the sword rain disappeared into his body like birds returning to their nest. Next time you fight with others, don't talk nonsense. Otherwise, it will be too shameful if you have to beg for mercy when you are abused. Lin Sun said this with a smile and left the battlefield. Wu Huang's face was gloomy and his teeth were almost broken. He was defeated so badly in this battle that he was completely abused. Not only did he lose the first place that he was determined to win, but he also lost all his face because of this. Even if he could finally get the second place in the Tao discussion of Yinzhou, when people mentioned him, how could they not know that he had been beaten and ravaged by Jin Duyi? Jin Duyi, you will die sooner or later. Wu Huang roared in his heart. As Lin Sun walked out of the battlefield, all the eyes of the audience were focused on him. Looking at this clean and tidy young man, who was completely unscathed, everyone's faces were filled with shock and respect. So far, the 3 battles today were over. Lin Sun won 2. Wu Huang won 1. Lu Duba lost. There was no doubt that at this time, Lin Sun was already the first in the Tao discussion of Yinzhou. He won. Ha ha, he won. There was a thunderous uproar in the field. A dazzling smile appeared on Jintian Xuanyue's beautiful face. Her cheeks were flushed red, and she was extremely excited in her heart. The Cloud Prefecture was one of the 49 prefectures of the prehistoric world, and its territory was even vaster than a large world. It was extremely difficult for him to emerge from the numerous elections and seize the title of first in the Tao discussion. And now, Lin Sun did it. 90,000 Li Wind Rock stands upright. 8,000 years long sword cry. This battle was won beautifully. Heng Xiao clapped his hands and laughed heartily. He sighed in his heart. He was indeed worthy of being the junior uncle of his ancestral master. He was really impressive. This child is indeed a rare genius in this world, a dark horse that can shock the world. Today's battle has truly broadened my horizons. Guan Su sighed. The other important figures present were also overwhelmed with emotions. Before this, no one had thought that the final first place would be taken by a dark horse like Jin Duyi. Especially the battle between him and Wu Huang. It caused all these old fellows to be even more shocked, and their minds suffered an unprecedented blow. Amazing, I have to admit, Lu Dubu muttered. Why do I feel that even the battle with Wu Huang didn't force out all of Jin Duyi's strength? Xie Yuhua's starry eyes were illusory, and her expression was blank. At this moment, Jin Duyi was undoubtedly an existence that was the center of attention, but in Xie Yuhua's eyes, he was more and more unfathomable. He was unfathomable, like an abyss. The other experts like Wang Tu, Su Muhan, Lung Xiujia, Gue Shanxing, and so on all had complicated expressions. Jin Duyi, he was absolutely an anomaly that had appeared in the Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture, and he was the final winner that no one had expected. The surroundings were in an uproar. On the other hand, no one paid attention to Wu Huang, who was covered in injuries. On the other hand, Daoist Lan's face was livid, and his chest felt stuffy. However, no one paid attention to him as well. On the same day, the Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture came to an end, and the news about the Tao discussion started to spread like a hurricane. It charged towards all directions and caused a great uproar. What? Jin Dui is first. Lu Dubu and Wu Huang were actually not a match for him. This Jin Dui is too surprising. All the experts that found out about the final rankings of the Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture were surprised, astounded, and filled with disbelief. After all, who could have imagined that a young man that was unknown before the Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture would crush all the experts and seize the first after the Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture had begun? Have all of you noticed? Since Jin Di participated in the Tao discussion until now, not only has he not suffered a single defeat, his ranking has risen to the first repeatedly. During the first round of the selections, he established a record of 99 successive victories, and he became the most dazzling dark horse amongst the 10 rankings. During the second round of the selections, he was the first existence to pass through the 9th level of the Great Void Tao Pagoda, and Lu Dubu and the others were left behind by him. Moreover, during the final round of the selections, he even fought his way out of the encirclement and successively defeated Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, and the others in an invincible manner to seize the first. When the information related to Lin Sun was summarized and sorted out, everyone noticed a fact to their shock. In this vast Tao discussion of Cloud Prefecture, Lin Sun, who was disguised as Jin Dui, had actually created numerous miracles that could shake the world. Where exactly is he from? Which old freak's disciple is he? Jin Dui. Exactly how strong is he? Quickly, gather information about this person with all your might. In the following period of time, everyone in Cloud Prefecture was discussing Lin Sun. Unfortunately, no one knew his true identity until the end. Firstly, Lin Sun did not appear with his true appearance. Secondly, he had the Rui Taoist robe to conceal his strength. No one could have imagined that such a young man had already shaken the world of the ancient Tao in the starry sky many years ago when the trip to the Kunlun ruins ended. While the outside world was in an uproar, Lin Sun, Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, Xie Yuhua, Wang Tu, and the others were summoned by Guan Su and the other great figures. Within an ancient hall in the Great Void Sect, the atmosphere was solemn. Guan Su spoke in a low voice. The Tao discussion grand meeting jointly organized by the 6 great Tao courts will be held in half a year. At that time, the 10 of you will represent the cultivation world of Cloud Prefecture and head to the Middle Earth Prefecture's Dark Yellow Tao Court to participate in this grand meeting. Here are 10 nameplates. Keep them well. As he spoke, Guan Su waved his sleeve, and 10 streams of light flashed out and landed in the hands of Lin Sun and the others. Lin Sun held in his hand and took a look. The nameplate was polished from mysterious dark yellow divine jade, and it was branded with a stone tablet totem. I hope all of you won't be conceited because of this. You must know that the Tao discussion this time is only limited to our Cloud Prefecture, and those who can participate in the Tao discussion grand meeting are all top-notch peerless figures. Guan Su's voice was like a bell as he admonished. Lin Sun and the others nodded. They knew very well that a selection like the Cloud Prefecture's Tao discussion grand meeting would also take place in the other prefectures of the primordial world. Just like them, the top 10 of each prefecture were qualified to participate in the Tao discussion grand meeting. Besides that, the disciples and inheritors of the 6 great Tao courts of the Middle Earth Prefecture, the 10 great combat clans, and the monstrous figures from the other worlds in the starry sky would participate in the Tao discussion grand meeting as well. It could be foreseen that when the curtains to the Tao discussion grand meeting were drawn, the experts that were able to participate were bound to be monstrous and abnormal. On the same day, the experts that participated in the selection of the Cloud Prefecture's Tao discussion grand meeting left successively under the lead of the seniors of their respective sects and clans. Lin Sun left on the same day and set out alone. He'd already made an appointment with Hang Xiao to start preparing to head to the Imperial clan, the Jiang clan, after he returned to the Xuanji Dao sect. Swoosh! In the sky, a treasured vessel tore through the sky, and it carried Lin Sun as it flew towards the direction of the Xuanji Dao sect. On the treasured vessel, Lin Sun sat cross-legged in meditation, and he was comprehending and digesting the experience he'd obtained from participating in the Cloud Prefecture's Tao Discussion Grand Meeting. Presently, I'm only a step away from the late stage of the ultimate Saint King realm, and my control of the Tao domain has attained a level of mastery. Lin Sun pondered. In this Tao Discussion Grand Meeting, there were only a handful of opponents that he could fight, but it allowed Lin Sun to obtain a great deal of benefits. Refining the martial Tao source energy allowed him to condense the crimson flame Taoist body and control the eye of incineration. Swallowing the prime purity pill allowed his cultivation to improve greatly, and he was on the verge of breaking through to the late stage of the ultimate Saint King realm. Most importantly, participating in the selection battles allowed him to witness a variety of Tao domains, and he obtained a great deal of comprehension and comprehension. It also allowed him to accumulate valuable experience towards perfecting his own Tao domain. After pondering for a long time, Lin Sun made a decision. He would strive to break through his cultivation in one go and attain perfection in his Tao domain at the same time before participating in the Tao Discussion Grand Meeting. Bang! Suddenly, the vast universe arc shook violently as if it had hit a rock. On the other hand, Lin Sun, who'd noticed that something was amiss in advance, had already charged out of the treasured vessel at the first possible moment. He stood in the air, and with a single glance, he saw a group of figures standing on the road ahead. The person in the lead was a dignified, middle-aged man in a purple robe. His pupils were like bolts of lightning, and he emanated a formidable aura that belonged to the quasi-emperor realm. A group of people clustered around him, and many of them were actually quasi-emperors. There was a figure that Lin Sun was extremely familiar with amongst them. Surprisingly, it was Hellion Chi. "Young man, do you know why we're looking for you?" The middle-aged man in a purple robe spoke coldly. Lin Sun's expression was indifferent as he casually put away the vast universe arc, and then he said, "I can roughly guess." Even Hellion Chi had made an appearance, so how could he not understand what was about to happen? Moreover, when he left the Great Void Tao sect, he'd already expected that someone would definitely take action against him after the Tao discussion of Cloud State came to an end. But he'd never imagined that they would actually come so quickly. Since it's like this, I advise you not to resist and come with us obediently. The middle-aged man in a purple robe had an indifferent expression. As he spoke, the people around him spread out and formed a fan shape, and they pressed towards Lin Sun in an encirclement manner. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, indifferent, clear, and tranquil. Perhaps he still had to conceal some of his strength and resources during the Tao discussion, so as to avoid being too conspicuous and causing unnecessary disturbances. But at this moment, in this wilderness, he was like a dragon returning to the ocean, and there was no need for him to restrain himself any longer. Chapter 2001. The middle-aged man in a purple robe and the others flew in the air and surrounded Lin Sun in a fan-shaped formation. Everyone's aura could be said to be terrifying, and it was like a vast ocean that completely covered the surrounding mountains and rivers. Hellion Chi followed closely behind. A sliver of unconcealable excitement appeared on his face. So what if he won the first place in the Yinzhou Tao discussion? From today on, there would be no Jin Duyi in the world. 6 quasi-emperors together. Don't you think we overestimate this boy? A silver-robed woman said with a proud expression. After all, he is a rare young man, and he has just won the first place in the Tao discussion. He deserves our attention. A short and fat old man said with a smile. Everyone, be careful. Since such a young man dares to walk alone, he must have many life-saving means in his hands. Don't fail miserably. The middle-aged man in a purple robe reminded in a deep voice. After the end of the Tao discussion, they had already taken action and kept a close eye on Lin Sun all the way. The reason why they chose to take action at this time was that they were sure that Lin Sun was indeed walking alone. Secondly, this area was located in the depths of the boundless mountain range. It was sparsely populated, and the nearest city was tens of thousands of miles away. If they killed Lin Sun here, they wouldn't worry about being discovered. After all, Lin Sun was now the first place in the Tao discussion in Yinzhou, and he would represent the cultivation world of Yunzhou to participate in the Tao discussion 3 months later. Under such circumstances, if people knew that they killed Lin Sun, it was bound to bring extremely serious impact to them. "Young man, have you thought it through and come with us obediently?" Someone asked slowly. At this time, they had completely blocked this area and regarded Lin Sun as a turtle in a jar, a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Lin Sun looked indifferent and said with a smile, "I thought that the people of Mysterious Void Island would be the first to jump out to deal with me, but I didn't expect that it would be you old fools. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed." As he spoke, a force like molten lava boiled and ran in Lin Sun's body. "Humph, you're sharp-tongued and reckless." The silver-robed woman snorted coldly. She was surprised to be scolded by Lin Sun, a junior. Didn't this kid know his situation? Swish! She stretched out her hand and waved, and a piece of purple light swept out. The light was intertwined and shrouded Lin Sun in the distance. This was the power of a quasi-emperor. Although it seemed to be an understatement, its power could be said to be terrifying enough to strike fear into the hearts of all saints. Lin Sun stopped smiling. Boom! A large abyss quietly appeared around his body. It was like a furnace, but it wasn't a furnace. It was like an abyss, but it wasn't. Crash, before the purple light could even reach him. It was completely devoured and annihilated, leaving not a single drop behind. The silver-robed woman's expression changed slightly. Lin Sun's figure had already flashed, and he came to kill. A wisp of dazzling sword energy appeared on the tip of his finger. Its sharpness was unparalleled, and its momentum was unparalleled. There was no return. Even in the Tao discussion of Cloud State, Lin Sun had never exerted his full strength, but at this moment he integrated all of it into this sword. Not good. The silver-robed woman's heart trembled and her body stiffened. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. At this moment, she felt like she was facing death. Under the stimulation of her instincts, which had been cultivated through many years of battles, she did not hesitate to attack with all her strength and resist. Buzz! Layers of divine rainbow halos appeared on her body, and they were all condensed from the power of the great Tao laws of a quasi-emperor. This move was called the 800 Divine Life Force, and its defense was astonishing. Slash! A cold light flashed as the sword slashed down. Boom! The void exploded, and the peerless sword energy was like a blade that could split open the sky, and it easily slashed through the layers of divine rainbow halos around the silver-robed woman. That scene was like a knife cutting through tofu and the 800 Divine Light Force that the silver-robed woman was so proud of was instantly destroyed. No! The silver-robed woman let out a scream that was filled with terror. But her voice stopped abruptly, because this sword had already slashed her into two, and then the two bloody halves of her body exploded in the void, causing a mist of blood to fill the air. In an instant, a quasi-emperor was killed with a single sword strike. This sudden and unforeseen event caused the purple-robed middle-aged man and the others to be unable to rescue her in time. When they reacted, they saw the scene of the silver-robed woman being slashed, and all of them were horrified and shocked. How is this possible? A peerless Saint King had killed a quasi-emperor with a single sword strike in a disdainful and heaven-defying manner. Who in the world had ever seen such a shocking thing? It was too terrifying. Lin Sun's figure disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared in front of the short and fat elder. Boom! He pinched his palms and fingers together and fiercely pushed out. It was just a big seal, but it seemed to be able to swallow the heavens and the earth, and it showed a terrifying and boundless, imposing manner. The short and fat elder had not recovered from the shock. In the face of such a murderous attack, his whole body quivered, and he did not hesitate to go all out. His 10 fingers were like hooks, and he hugged the air in front of him. Buzz! A golden formation totem was condensed, and the multicolored light was blazing, and it flowed with the shocking power of the great law. A dull thunder-like collision sound rang out. The golden rune totem suddenly exploded, but Lin Sun's seal was finally blocked. But before the short and fat elder could breathe a sigh of relief, there was a sharp pain in front of his eyes. He saw a terrifying flame that seemed to be able to smelt everything in the world suddenly burst out from Lin Sun's pupils. The eyes of burning ashes. With a bang, the short and fat elder let out a blood-curdling scream, and his whole body was covered by a transparent torrent of flames. In just an instant, he turned into ashes and disappeared into the void. This was the domineering power of the eyes of burning ashes. Lin Sun had also used it at the Tao discussion competition in Cloud State, but he did not use its full power. At this moment, the eye of blazing ashes, which had been unleashed to its fullest, had suddenly incinerated a quasi-emperor. After the silver-robed woman, the short and fat elder was also killed. All of this happened in just a few seconds. Evil creature, attack! Kill him quickly! The purple-robed middle-aged man and the others all moved, their faces livid and full of shock and anger. No one had expected that as soon as the battle began, in just a moment, 2 of their companions would be killed on the spot. This caught them off guard and completely exceeded their expectations. In particular, the terrifying power that Lin Sun had shown made them begin to feel cold and fearful. They could not believe that this was the power that a great Saint King could master. But no matter what, at this moment, they did not dare to have any hesitation. At this time, Lin Sun's figure flashed in the air, and when he reappeared, his whole temperament suddenly changed. He was dressed in a moon-white robe, his black eyes were deep, and his whole body was flowing with thousands of divine brilliance. He was no longer as violent and wanton as before. Instead, he gave people a temperament that was as deep as an abyss and as calm as water. Because at this moment, he had used his real body. This was also the first time that he had fought in his real body since he set foot on the boat and crossed the starry sky to the primordial world. It's a little late to get home. This chapter is a little short, only about 2,000 words. The next chapter will be longer, and the number of words will be twice that of this chapter. Chapter 2002. The familiar power, the familiar aura, and everything familiar. When Lin Sun's essence, chi, and spirit returned to his original body, he was like a dragon returning to the sea, a tiger in the forest, and his whole person became different. His blood and chi roared, his eyes flashed like lightning, and the power of origin roared in his body. Every move he made showed a demonic demeanor. Long time no see, Lin Sun sighed with emotion. Swish! A ray of flying light shot over. It was a flying knife, 7 inches long, slender, and crystal clear, flowing with dazzling light. I also have a treasure. A bright light shot from Lin Sun straight into the sky, like a comet across the sun and moon, with unparalleled sharpness, and collided with the flying knife. Looking carefully, it was a broken blade. Clang! As the light splashed in all directions, the nearby void exploded, and the airflow tumbled endlessly. The flying knife buzzed and trembled, and suddenly a crack appeared on it. There was a cry of alarm, and a thin man who controlled the flying knife showed a look of shock. That was his life saint weapon, which was about to condense a spirit embryo, but it was damaged in the confrontation. Almost at the same time, the purple-robed middle-aged man and others also rushed over from different directions. Whoosh! An ancient green thunder seal spun in the air, setting off a sky full of astral lightning that poured down with a loud rumble. Moo! A fiery red kuei ox shadow rushed out, making an earth-shattering roar, and a substantial silver sound wave spread out. Chi! A golden spear pierced the air like a golden lightning, so sharp that it seemed to be able to pierce through the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. 3 kinds of attacks from 3 quasi-emperors attacked Lin Sun in a triangular formation. For a moment, the area was turbulent, and the nearby mountains collapsed and turned into powder. Break! Lin Sun ignored it and directly activated the broken blade, turning it into a long rainbow, and fiercely fought with the cyan thunder seal. As for himself, he deduced the profound meaning of devouring abyss, and his whole body was steaming with the Tao field of great accomplishment, pushing forward. Boom! The surging silver sound wave exploded and was devoured by the abyss-like Tao domain. Even the fire-red Kuei Ox Phantom was struck heavily, nearly dissipating in midair. At the same time, an endless amount of Taishian sword chi whistled out. Every single strand of Taishian sword chi accurately slashed at the golden spear. Clang, clang, clang. A series of ear-piercing collisions rang out. In the end, both the golden spear and its owner were fiercely blasted flying by the surging sword chi, and their figures staggered back while they almost coughed up blood. Again, Lin Sun's eyes were as cold as lightning, and he waved his sleeves. The power of the broken blade was pushed to the extreme, and a bright light exploded in the void. The brilliance of its sharpness caused the mountains and rivers to lose their color. The eyes of the purple-robed middle-aged man, who was controlling the green thunder seal, narrowed, and he suddenly made a hand sign. His hands blossomed like a lotus. His 10 fingers formed a series of mysterious seals. The azure lightning seal unleashed a torrential rain of azure lightning, emitting an aura of great destruction and terror. Although the azure lightning was terrifying, it was only able to block the broken blade for a moment before it was forcibly smashed into nothingness. When the broken blade slashed at the azure thunder seal, the purple-robed middle-aged man's cheeks turned pale, and he suddenly retreated a few steps. He was shocked. My celestial dipper green sky seal is activated with a secret technique, but it can't withstand the attack of a peerless Saint King. How can his power be so terrifying? The purple-robed, middle-aged man was an old monster in the quasi-emperor realm. His power was like the sea, and he was above all saints. With the previous attack, even a quasi-emperor could not easily destroy it. But at this time, it was broken by Lin Sun. How could he not be shocked? But this attack also bought time for the others. Go! The thin man pulled out a snow-white saber, stepped into the air, and suddenly slashed. Crack! The saber light was like lightning, drawing a dazzling trace in the void. The domineering power of this saber was almost indescribable. The dazzling and blazing saber chi traversed the void for 800 jong. It was incomparably condensed, like a dazzling galaxy rolling in reverse. This part of the world seemed to be split in half by this saber. Before the saber light arrived, a terrifying murderous aura had already swept over. The domineering saber Tao was vividly displayed. Starlight's Saber Guide. This was the peak attack of the thin man's saber Tao cultivation. He had tempered his saber for thousands of years in the vicissitudes of time, and it had long been integrated into his Tao. The saber was his Tao, and the Tao was his saber. If it was any other Saint realm expert, just this level of saber intent was enough to tear their mind to pieces and make them feel incomparable despair. Umph! Lin Sun raised his fist, and with endless dazzling Tao light, he punched the air. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and the sun and moon dimmed. The blazing fist energy seemed to swallow everything, and there was nothing it could not refine. It suddenly collided with the saber. This was a punch that was fused with the boundless devouring scripture's Tao domain. The 800-foot-long saber chi exploded inch by inch in the void, and Lin Sun's fist energy showed a crushing momentum. The thin man's perlicue shook violently. He felt as if his saber had struck an oncoming mountain, and even his saber was almost sent flying. How can he be so strong? The thin man was shocked. There was a difference of a great realm, but he possessed such a heaven-defying combat strength. This made the thin man, a quasi-emperor, feel that it was inconceivable. Boom! There was a loud sound. The dazzling saber chi was completely crushed by the fist energy, but Lin Sun's fist energy also dissipated. The aftermath of countless saber chi and fist energy was like a tsunami, sweeping in all directions. The mountains and rivers were like a hurricane passing through. Rocks exploded, trees collapsed, and smoke and dust filled the sky. Lin Sun's figure also shook in this attack, but he was unharmed. Witnessing this scene, all the quasi-emperors present were unable to calm down. A young man first killed 2 quasi-emperors on their side, and then fought 1 against 4 without falling into a disadvantageous position. This kind of combat strength was simply unimaginable. Hellion Chi, who had been watching in the distance, felt his scalp tingle, and his face changed completely. Compared with his performance in the Yinzhou Dao discussion, the current Jin Dui was completely different. He was so terrifying that it was almost suffocating. Use your full strength. The purple-robed, middle-aged man shouted, activating the Cyan Thunder Seal, and its power became more and more powerful. Buzz, the owner of the golden spear, like a golden sun moving horizontally, came from afar, as if his whole body was burning. On the other side, someone produced a magnificent and multicolored spiritual bead. It descended from the sky, carrying tremendous force and astonishing Dao light. There was also someone who pointed toward space, causing a Dao domain to surge into appearance, and it transformed into a world of flames. There were a myriad of flaming lotuses swaying within it, and every single one of these flaming lotuses had numerous flaming silhouettes surging into appearance. There were flying beasts, monsters, and ghosts amongst them. World of Fire Lotus. Good timing. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and the fighting spirit in his heart was completely ignited. The surging power in his body was all deduced to the extreme at this moment, and his whole body seemed to have turned into a big abyss spanning between heaven and earth. Break! He charged forward. The Taoist domain that was like a furnace, like an abyss, but not an abyss, spread out, covering the sky and the sun, and the power of the various great Tao gathered within, surging like chaos. The power of the Cyan Thunder, the Golden Spear, the bright spiritual pearl, and the world of Fire Lotus were all drowned by the abyss-like domain. The void seemed to have been gnawed away by a heaven-swallowing beast. Boom! The bright spiritual pearl wailed, dimmed, and fell. A quasi-emperor let out a muffled groan, and his figure retreated, and every step he took caused the void to tremble. Following that, the golden spear was sent flying, and the quasi-emperor who controlled the spear revealed a shocked expression. The surging Cyan Thunder was directly annihilated and refined, vanishing without a trace. The purple-robed middle-aged man let out a furious roar, and the chi and blood in his body surged. Only the world of Fire Lotus was resisting, but the thousands of Fire Lotuses and the many phantoms born from the Fire Lotuses were all withering and vanishing at an astonishing speed. The quasi-emperor who developed the world of Fire Lotus coughed up blood repeatedly. The power of a single attack was actually this strong. Everyone's expression changed. But not only that, over there, the broken blade took advantage of this opportunity to slash a quasi-emperor, almost causing him to fall from the void. In the distance, Hellion Chi gasped, and his soul almost came out of his body. Jin Dui was 1 against 4, but he still had the upper hand. It should be known that there were 4 quasi-emperors, and he was just a saint king of extinction. Everyone, if this man doesn't die, he will be a big problem for us. The purple-robed middle-aged man's face was livid, and he said word by word, "In any case, he must be killed today." The others nodded solemnly. In an instant, for monstrous killing intents rose to the sky, stirred the 9 heavens and 10 earths, and made this side of the world produce a violent wail. In Lin Sun's deep black eyes, the fighting intent was like fire. This was also the first time he had fought with a group of quasi-emperors since he started cultivating. Although he felt great pressure, it made his blood boil, because he hadn't released his full strength for a long time. Boom! The 4 quasi-emperors attacked at the same time. They either took out their most powerful treasures, performed peerless Dao techniques, or displayed the power of the Dao domain. The power that was released together was like an earth-shattering calamity, as though the sky had been shattered, the universe was overturned, and the sun and moon lost their light. For kinds of power belonging to quasi-emperors, with unparalleled aura, smashed down. At this moment, even Lin Sun couldn't help looking solemn. Whoosh! The power surged and roared in his body like the Yangtze River. His internal organs made a thunderous sound, and the essence, chi, and spirit in and out of his body seemed to be burning. Open! Lin Sun's eyes burst with divine light, and he suddenly deduced the Tao field to the extreme and integrated it into a punch. This punch almost used all the strength in his body, and when he punched out, there was a grand scene of heaven and earth collapsing and all things collapsing. Boom, 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 boom. The next moment, the terrifying sound of collision resounded through the world, and the white light turned into an endless torrent, surging in all directions. From a distance, the world seemed to be shaking, and there were signs of collapse. Then, an incomparably strange scene appeared. In the endless torrent of light, there was a fist force rushing out, and wherever it passed, Taoist skills collapsed, treasures wailed, and the law collapsed. When the haze dissipated, the four quasi-emperors all looked solemn and incredulous, because the full force attacks they'd launched in unison had actually been forcefully dispersed by this single punch. God, Helian Shi, who was far away, was dazed. He couldn't see what had happened before, but when he saw Lin Sun's outstanding and intact figure, he couldn't suppress the shock in his heart at all. Too strong. Jean Di, you are indeed a first-class heaven-defying figure in the world, and I'm afraid that the core descendants of the 6 major Taoist courts are no better than you. But how many times can you block such an all-out attack? The purple-robed middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Earlier, you were only able to kill 2 of our companions because you seized the opportunity to catch us off guard. Now, it's impossible for you to accomplish that. Stop and come with us. Perhaps you'll have a chance to live. Someone threatened coldly. Ha! Lin Sun revealed a disdainful look and gently stretched his body. His whole body emerged from the inside out with an invincible and disdainful power. If I attack with all my strength, who among you can block it? His words resounded through the sky. Stubborn. The thin man snorted coldly. Is that so? Lin Sun's figure flickered, and he teleported away, so fast that it was almost impossible to catch him with the naked eye. At this moment, he finally launched a killing spree without holding back. It was one thing to attack with all his strength, but it was another thing to really make up his mind to kill. This was a change in his state of mind and willpower. They soon realized how horrible Lin Sun was when he really wanted to kill people. Swoosh! His figure suddenly appeared in front of the thin man. The thin man brandished his saber and slashed. The snow-white saber set off a shocking divine brilliance, and the unparalleled power of the law swept out from the blade. Lin Sun didn't dodge, and a realm of Tao rose around his body, instantly enveloping the thin man and his slash. Within the realm of Tao, the thin man's slash seemed to have struck an abyss. It silently vanished without a trace, not even causing a ripple, and his entire body seemed to be suppressed by an unparalleled power as he fell into a boundless abyss. He felt powerless to break free. Oh no! He struggled frantically, but to no avail. All the power he released was silently devoured and annihilated before he could react. The abyss-like realm of Tao transformed into a chaotic cauldron that suppressed and refined him. No! He finally felt horrified and let out a scream. His flesh and blood began to melt and vanish inch by inch. Even his essence, vitality, and spirit were rapidly evaporating. In just an instant, the thin man was reduced to ashes. Boom! By the time Lin Sun retracted his realm of Tao, the quasi-emperor had already vanished. Not a single trace or aura was left behind. How is this possible? The purple-robed man and the other 2 remaining quasi-emperors felt a chill run down their spines as their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Boom! They didn't dare to hesitate any longer and attacked with all their might, almost risking their lives. This time, Lin Sun didn't clash head-on. In the previous battle, he had already realized that it was difficult for him to kill multiple quasi-emperors in a head-on clash with his current strength. However, as long as he didn't clash head-on, it wasn't difficult to defeat them one by one. Swoosh! His figure flickered as he moved through the void, constantly dodging and moving around. He didn't clash head-on with his opponent at all. A moment later, Lin Sun finally seized the opportunity and leaped forward, appearing in front of the quasi-emperor expert with the golden battle spear. On the other hand, a translucent and crystalline jade bottle that was a few inches tall appeared in his palm, and the mouth of the bottle flowed with an obscure and unfathomable halo. It was aimed at this person. Chapter 2003. Great Way, Immeasurable Bottle. As Lin Sun exerted his strength, a sword chi suddenly shot out from the mouth of the crystal-clear bottle. One way out. Lin Sun had used the same move to kill the silver-robed woman before. However, the aura of this move displayed by the Great Way, Immeasurable Bottle was completely different, and its power was double that of Lin Sun's. Clang! In the deafening collision sound, a golden spear was violently sent flying, and the wrist of the quasi-emperor holding the spear was directly broken. He looked aghast, and just as he was about to dodge, the wisp of sword chi had already slashed down. Boom! A terrifying scene appeared. The body of this quasi-emperor realm expert exploded with a loud bang under the sword chi, and his soul was scattered into nothingness. At this point, the fourth quasi-emperor was killed. The remaining purple-robed man and the quasi-emperor controlling the spiritual pearl were both aghast, and the anger in their hearts had been replaced by a chill of fear. At first, they were aggressive and thought that Lin Sun was like a turtle in a jar. They thought that it was a waste of 6 quasi-emperors to deal with a young man of Saint King realm. But now, the battle had only been going on for a moment, and 4 quasi-emperors had been killed. The silver-robed woman died under the one way out. The short and fat elder died under the eye of burning ashes. The thin man died in the realm of Tao, and the man holding the golden spear died under the Great Way, Immeasurable Bottle. The numerous bloody scenes of death were like extremely heavy blows to them, and it caused the violet-robed man and the young man to have a surreal feeling as if they were dreaming. It was too terrifying. It was too incredible. Second brother, the situation is not good. If we don't leave now, I'm afraid. The quasi-emperor controlling the spiritual pearl wore a solemn expression. He was dressed in a brocade robe, and his aura was fierce, but at this moment his heart was also full of fear. The purple-robed, middle-aged man's expression was uncertain. His heart was bleeding, full of anger, unwillingness, and fear. He was about to lose his halberd in front of a young junior, and so many of his companions were injured. But the words of the brocade-robed man made him calm down a little, and the intention to retreat sprouted in his heart. Go! He gritted his teeth, intending to retreat. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? Lin Sun's figure suddenly charged over, activating the power of the realm of Tao to cover 10 directions, restraining the 2. Kill! The expressions of the purple-robed middle-aged man and the middle-aged man changed, and they fought with their lives on the line. However, at this moment, they weren't fighting to kill their enemies, and they were fighting to carve out a path of survival. So long as they were able to seize the slightest opportunity, then with their strengths, it would be sufficient for them to flee with ease. Boom! The violet-robed middle-aged man pressed his hands down in front of him, causing a myriad of layers of water to appear before him. It was like an ocean that raged, and it emanated a powerful, imposing aura that seemed capable of drowning the universe and destroying the world. On the other side, the man in embroidered robes executed his trump card as well. Along with a wave of his hand, 18 multicolored spirit pearls flashed out, and they formed a ring of spirit pearls that droned and emanated surging divine radiance. The situation of 2 quasi-emperors fighting with their lives on the line was unimaginably terrifying, causing Lin Sun to feel great pressure. He no longer held back. Whoosh! A dazzling and resplendent white light suddenly flashed out from his chest, causing the heavens, the earth, the mountains, the rivers, and everything in the world to seem to have instantly frozen. It was as if the flow of time had stopped for an instant. Innate divine ability, death seal. Everything in the world was motionless like a canvas. The violet-robed middle-aged man and the man in embroidered robes seemed to have been frozen in the painting, and even the desperate attacks they executed had stopped there. This extremely strange scene was undoubtedly too terrifying. After all, it involved the supreme energy of the Order of Time, and it was a terrifying profundity that even martial emperors were rarely able to come into contact with. Slash. At the instant that the death seal was executed, the broken blade was like a brilliant river of stars that slashed down towards the man in embroidered robes. At the same time, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air before the violet-robed middle-aged man, and he executed a punch that shook the heavens with the boundless devouring scripture. Pooh! The body of the man in embroidered robes was sliced open, and blood sprayed into the sky. Peerlessly dazzling sharp divine radiance drowned his exploded body, and in the end, both his body and soul were annihilated. On the other side, along with a muffled sound of impact, the chest of the violet-robed middle-aged man collapsed from the punch, and blood sprayed from his mouth and nose as he let out a shrill cry. Originally, Lin Sun's punch was aimed at the head of the violet-robed middle-aged man, but in the end, the violet-robed middle-aged man had reacted from the death seal and dodged it in time. If it wasn't for this punch would have taken his life. Bang! Space collapsed as the violet-robed middle-aged man was blasted flying. His face was ghastly pale while his chest had collapsed, and he'd suffered an extremely heavy injury. Moreover, when he saw the scene of the man in embroidered robes being killed in the distance, it caused him to be horrified. Damn it! His hair was disheveled while his eyes were bleeding, and he was furious to the point of going mad. Little bastard, I, Hylian Xiong, will definitely kill you in the future. You won't have the chance. Lin Sun's voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when he'd already appeared before the violet-robed middle-aged man. In the next instant, the violet-robed middle-aged man's vision went black as if a devouring abyss had enveloped him. He originally intended to execute a secret technique to dodge, yet his figure seemed as if it was restrained by a terrifying devouring force. After that, his entire body was devoured by it. Bang! Along with the full circulation of Lin Sun's Dao domain, the body of the heavily injured and dying middle-aged man instantly exploded inch by inch into powder. His essence, energy, spirit, and all his strength seemed as if they'd suffered a terrifying devouring force, and they were obliterated in a short period of time. Lin Sun stood beneath the sky while his body reflected the image of a deep abyss, and his black hair fluttered as if he was a fiend god of ancient legend. He looked down upon the world. In the distance, Hylian Qi, who had witnessed all this, had long been dumbfounded and lost his mind. When he saw that the violet-robed middle-aged man was also in trouble, he seemed to collapse and cried out involuntarily, "No, this is impossible. This is not true." His horrified roar resounded through the shattered mountains and rivers. Hylian Qi, a peerless Saint King, had once become one of the top 10 in the selection of Cloud State, and he had also stood out in the second round of selection. Geniuses like him were existences that most cultivators in the Cloud Plane looked up to. But at this time, he was like a frightened quail, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets, as if he was grieving the death of his parents. Regret. Lin Sun suddenly appeared in front of Hylian Qi. Looking at his horrified and confused look, a touch of pity couldn't help appearing in Lin Sun's black eyes. Did this idiot finally feel afraid? Who are you? Hylian Qi raised his eyes and looked at Lin Sun in front of him, as if he had met Lin Sun for the first time and felt extremely strange. You're still concerned about this question when you're about to die. Lin Sun was surprised. I'm just sure that there has never been a person named Jin Duyi in this world who can kill so many Emperor-to-be in the peerless Saint King realm. Hylian Qi's eyes were scarlet, full of hatred. If you were as smart as you were before, how could today's things happen? Lin Sun sighed softly. Who the hell are you? Hylian Qi roared. He seemed to be crazy and had completely lost his mind. You're going to die. What's the use of knowing who I am? Lin Sun said and waved his sleeve. Boom! The terrifying power turned into a great furnace and smashed down. This was also a kind of manipulation of the Tao field. When it was like a furnace, it derived the profound meaning of the furnace of Tao. When it was like an abyss, it derived the image of swallowing the abyss. In a flash, Hylian Qi was killed on the spot and his soul scattered. He was roaring and questioning who Lin Sun was before he died. In fact, Lin Sun had long seen that Hellion Chi's state of mind had collapsed and his mind had been impacted. Even if Lin Sun didn't kill him, he would become a demented madman. Without any emotion, Lin Sun began to clean up the spoils on the field. After a while, whoosh, the vast universe arc rose into the air and teleported away with Lin Sun. All that was left was a scene of devastation and broken mountains and rivers. Not long after Lin Sun left, a group of people appeared. The leader was the headmaster of Mysterious Sky Island, Taoist Lan. There are residual auras of different quasi-emperors here. Looking at this scene of destruction, there must have been an extremely fierce battle. Taoist Lan made a judgment with a glance. Headmaster, could it be that Jean Dui has already been killed by someone else? Someone couldn't help asking. Taoist Lan shook his head, his expression uncertain. The residual auras of quasi-emperors here belong to 6 people. If I'm not wrong, these 6 people must have met with misfortune. What? That Jean Dui is clearly traveling alone. Could it be that someone is helping him in the dark? Everyone was shocked and uncertain. Let's go back to the sect immediately. Taoist Lan took a deep breath and made a decision. Go. Everyone was stunned. Give up just like that? Jean Dui dared to travel alone. How could he not have someone to rely on? Didn't he see that 6 quasi-emperors have fallen in this area? I suspect that there might be an emperor-level figure behind him. Taoist Lan said in a low voice. Emperor Realm. His words caused everyone to be shocked. After thinking about it, it made sense. How could an existence that could kill 6 quasi-emperors be an ordinary person? Taoist Lan led the group and left in a hurry. Humph, these guys from Mysterious Sky Island are smart. Not long after Taoist Lan left, Hung Shao and other important figures of Xuanji Dao sect appeared near the shattered mountains and rivers. Headmaster, isn't Jean Dui's battle prowess a little too terrifying? Do you know where he came from? Someone couldn't help asking. Previously, they had secretly followed Lin Sun under Hung Zhao's lead. When the battle broke out, they had all witnessed it. Originally, they had planned to lend a hand. Who would have thought that Lin Sun would kill 2 quasi-emperors at the beginning of the battle? Soon after, the other quasi-emperors were also killed one by one. Those bloody scenes caused all these old fellows to be deeply shocked, and they almost didn't dare believe their eyes. After all, who in the entire primordial world had seen a peak Saint King killing quasi-emperors as if they were chickens? Naturally, they didn't have the chance to help. No matter who Jean Dui is, no one can leak what happened today. Do you understand? Hung Shao said in a low voice. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they nodded in agreement. Chapter 2004. On the vast universe Arkansas, Lin Sun felt tired all over. He took out a pile of divine medicines and began to swallow and refine them. In the previous battle, he had released all of his strength. Although he had killed 6 quasi-emperor existences, his own consumption was also great. In particular, the forbidden passing magical ability had almost drained half of his strength. However, after this battle, Lin Sun also realized that with his current combat strength, he did not need to fear the existence of the quasi-emperor realm in the world. Lin Sun also knew that the quasi-emperor realm could stand above all saints, and the power they controlled was bound to be unparalleled. Among the quasi-emperors he had encountered so far, there had not been any powerful characters, but it was certain that there must be extremely powerful characters in the quasi-emperor realm. For example, Quasi-Emperor Ju Hu. When my cultivation reaches the peak of the late stage of Saint King realm and I control the field of Tao, perhaps even if I encounter a peak quasi-emperor, I should not be afraid. Lin Sun pondered as he cultivated. The road of the great Tao was dangerous and unpredictable. This primordial world was the first world of the Starry Sky ancient path, and it was destined to have many powerful and amazing characters. He did not think that he was really invincible in this realm. In short, in cultivation, one could neither be arrogant nor belittle oneself. The persistence of this state of mind was the most important. Half a day later, High Wind City. Lin Sun quietly entered, holding a jade token in his hand. It was crystal clear and shrouded in purple mist, with the words Hidden Mist engraved on it. Not long after, relying on the response of the Jade token, Lin Sun found the entrance to the underground black market in Highwind City. It was a refining shop, and the entrance was in a refining room. It was like entering another world, gray and hazy, without the prosperity and liveliness of the outside world. Everyone was in a hurry. Lin Sun had long been accustomed to this. When a waiter of the Hidden Mist House came up, Lin Sun directly handed over the purple jade token in his hand. This was a gift from Qing Ying. Until now, Lin Sun still felt amazed when he thought of the mysterious woman holding a blood umbrella, wearing a green dress and with ink-black hair. "Young master, this way, please." When the waiter saw this purple jade token, his expression suddenly changed, and there was a kind of heartfelt respect and obedience. In a hall prepared only for special distinguished guests, Lin Sun stated his purpose of coming. "I want to sell some treasures." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve, causing a pile of treasures to float up into appearance. They were like a small mountain that flowed with multicolored light and filled the entire room. These treasures were the trophies Lin Sun obtained when he killed enemies after leaving Green Province. The treasures of the 6 quasi-emperors he killed earlier were also in there. Of course, some of the treasures that were useful to his cultivation were kept by him. The items that he was selling now were all items that he had no use for. There were 2 saints in charge of appraising the treasures. One of them was a white-robed old man, while the other was a gray-robed man. When they saw this scene, their breathing became rapid and heavy. It took them a long time to regain their senses. But when they looked at Lin Sun, their eyes became more and more respectful. This distinguished guest definitely had a great background. After that, they started to get busy, and it took them the time to finish a cup of tea before they finished checking and appraising all the treasures. 31 million Dao crystals. This was the price of these treasures. And because Lin Sun held the purple jade token, the price was only 10% lower than the market price in the outside world. "Young master, now the underground black market in Lingfeng City can't gather so many Dao crystals in a short time. Why don't you give us some time to finish the business after we gather all the Dao crystals?" The white-robed old man said cautiously, "I'm pressed for time. I'm afraid I can't wait." Lin Sun frowned. He was not worried that the other party would dare to covet these treasures. First, he had the purple jade token, and second, he was not afraid at all because of his own foundation. The 2 saints were suddenly in a dilemma. After a while, the gray-robed man suddenly said, "Young master, yesterday, we received a batch of mysterious treasures. If you're interested, we can sell them to you in Dao crystals." Lin Sun was not interested, but he could see that it was obviously a bit difficult for them to take out so many Dao crystals now. After thinking about it, he said, "Let me have a look." Immediately, the gray-robed man hurried away and soon returned with a huge bronze box. The bronze box was half a person high and 2 feet wide, mottled with rust, ancient, and covered with layers of black talisman formations. Lin Sun could see at a glance that these were layers of seals, and they were old. Putting down the bronze box, the gray-robed man took out a talisman key and inserted it into the center of the talisman formation on the front of the box. With a rumbling sound of friction, the huge bronze box was slowly opened. The scene inside the box was immediately reflected in Lin Sun's eyes. A bronze seal the size of a fist, a small apricot flag half a foot high, a piece of gray soil the size of a palm, and a piece of decayed spiritual wood. Each of the 4 treasures was dull in color and had no spirituality. They were piled up like a pile of copper and iron. But if you carefully sensed it, you could find that each treasure exuded a kind of vicissitudes of life. "Young master, these 4 treasures, as well as the chest, were all sold by a guest yesterday. According to him, these treasures were inherited from the primordial era, and each of them possesses world-shaking might." The gray-robed man said in a low voice, "After our identification, we found that these treasures should be handed down from the primitive times, but it's hard to say whether their power is earth-shattering or not," the white-robed old man added. "These treasures seem to lack spirituality and are like a pile of waste, but they are actually not simple. He pointed at the bronze seal that was the size of a fist and said, "Just like this treasure. It doesn't have any fluctuations of energy or intelligence, and it doesn't even have any down markings. However, it weighs 180,000 kilograms, and even a sane artifact would be unable to damage it in the slightest. Besides that, this apricot yellow flag is even more peculiar. No matter if it's the divine material used to refine the flagpole or the divine material used to refine the flag, both of them can be said to be unheard of. We've also invited some extremely experienced appraisers, but none of them were able to identify what kind of divine material this treasure is made of. Unlike the bronze seal, this apricot flag is as light as a feather in my hand. I can hardly feel its weight, but it is impervious to water and fire. We have tried our best to tear it with the power of the Saint Realm, but we couldn't damage it at all. As for that piece of soil and the decaying divine wood, their origins are also unfathomable." Speaking of this, the two looked at Lin Sun together. Seeing Lin Sun looking at these treasures with interest, they were both excited. "There's hope." After looking at it for a while, Lin Sun asked, "Who sold these treasures?" It was a man who said that his family was in decline and he was poor. In order to let his child join the sect, he had to sell these ancestral treasures in exchange for enough Taoist gems for his child's cultivation. The gray-robed man said, "What's funny is that this guy actually said that his ancestor had entered the Kunlun ruins in the primeval times, and these treasures were also brought out from the Kunlun ruins." The white-robed old man sneered. "At that time, we were also skeptical and invited many appraisers to appraise them. In the end, we came to a conclusion that even if these treasures came from the Kunlun ruins, they can't be considered earth-shattering treasures." Lin Sun's black eyes flickered, and he also smiled. "So, you're planning to sell these treasures that can't be considered earth-shattering treasures to me?" The two sages were stunned and immediately became anxious. "Child, although it's not earth-shattering, these treasures were left behind from the primeval times after all. Their value is hard to estimate. Yes, we originally planned to take these treasures away and let the big shots of the Hidden Mist House reappraise them. But since we met you, if you're interested, we'd be happy to sell them to you." In this way, it was nothing more than to raise the price of these treasures. Of course, Lin Sun understood this. He pondered for a moment and said, "How many Taoist gems do you want to sell these treasures?" 9 million Taoist gems. The two sages looked at each other and reported a number together. "It's too expensive." Lin Sun shook his head. The two sages hurriedly explained, "Child, as you can see, although these treasures look inconspicuous, they definitely have a great background. You might be able to pick them up. This price is really not high." "That's right. To be honest, we also offered a lot of prices yesterday. It wasn't easy for us to buy them from that customer at the price of 6 million Taoist gems. The other party wouldn't even agree to 1 less Taoist gems. Buying them for 6 million Taoist gems and selling them to Lin Sun for 9 million Taoist gems was already a very fair price in the underground black market." Seeing this, Lin Sun nodded in agreement. The two sages immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "In this way, we'll be able to gather enough to pay you." Immediately, the two of them took out 22 million Taoist gems and put them into a storage bag. They handed them to Lin Sun along with a huge bronze chest. Lin Sun waved his sleeve and took all the gains. Without any delay, he decided to leave. But as soon as he walked out of the hall, he saw a thin, middle-aged man coming in a hurry. When he saw the two sages who sent Lin Sun away, the thin, middle-aged man immediately cried out, "You too! Can I redeem the ancestral treasures I sold yesterday?" Lin Sun immediately stopped and looked at the man. He had a stubble beard, pale cheeks, and a slovenly appearance. His cultivation could be considered to have stepped into the saint realm, but he was just a pseudo-saint. "I'm sorry. The treasures have been sold. It's impossible to redeem them." The old man in white robes' expression became cold. "I'm willing to pay a high price as long as I can redeem them." The thin, middle-aged man said anxiously, "It's ridiculous. What do you think of our Misty house? Once the transaction is completed, those treasures will no longer belong to you." What's more, we've already sold those treasures. How can we let you redeem them? The old man in white robe said unhappily. Lin Sun had completely understood that the treasures in the bronze chest should be sold by the thin, middle-aged man in front of him. My two friends, how about helping me? Chapter 2005. Silver mask, white clothes, tall and slender figure. When such a figure came, Lin Sun's pupils narrowed imperceptibly. He felt an unusual and powerful breath. Obviously, the other side had disguised himself and even concealed his breath. But Lin Sun's intuition from years of battle told him that this man was not simple. The gray-robed man and the white-robed old man frowned at the same time. They realized that the man with the silver mask was obviously with the emaciated middle-aged man. When they were about to refuse, they were stiff all over. As the silver-masked man looked at them, their hearts trembled as if they were being looked down by a supreme ruler. The gray-robed man took a deep breath and said, "My friend, this is the request of Misty House." Before he finished, the silver-masked man said, "Yesterday, you paid 6 million crystals to buy those treasures. I can give you twice the price to redeem them." His voice was sharp with a unique magnetism, like the sound of a blade scratching the sand. Although his tone was flat, it could not be refused. Twice the price. The gray-robed man and the white-robed old man were shocked. They realized that the treasures they had just sold to Lin Sun were far from as simple as they thought. But the transaction had been completed. They couldn't regret it. Moreover, Lin Sun was a distinguished guest with a purple jade token. They didn't dare to take back their words at this time. "I'm sorry, these treasures have been sold." As soon as the gray-robed man said this, he felt suffocated. A terrible breath like a landslide and tsunami came to him, which made his body tense and almost collapse on the spot. The silver-masked man said indifferently, "Who did you sell them to? I want a clear answer. If you don't say it, I don't care about Misty House." Every word and sentence revealed an extremely strong will and oppression. The gray-robed man and the white-robed old man were both sweating and palpitating. The breath of the silver-masked man was so horrible that they could hardly bear it. "My friend, it's not good to force others." At this moment, Lin Sun took a step sideways and stood in front of the gray-robed man and the white-robed man, looking at the silver-masked man. Suddenly, the gray-robed man and the white-robed man were like drowning people who were rescued. The pressure suddenly disappeared, and they felt relaxed. The silver-masked man stared at Lin Sun. His pupils were a deep blue, like a vast ocean, with frightening lightning flowing in them. Lin Sun was unruffled and calm. Even though his opponent's aura was powerful, it wasn't enough to affect his state of mind. "Interesting. To think that I would meet someone like you in this small Lingfeng city." The silver-masked man's voice carried a trace of coldness. "I'll give you a warning. Don't interfere in this matter. Otherwise, I'm afraid no one in the primordial world will be able to save you." His tone was still very calm, but his tone was extremely arrogant. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and said, "A threat." The silver-masked man said, "You can treat it as such." Lin Sun suddenly took a step forward. The others didn't feel anything, but the silver-masked man's body stiffened. He felt a monstrous and terrifying killing intent lock onto him, and it caused his hairs to stand on end. An expert, his pupils constricted, and he suddenly circulated all the strength in his body to dissolve it. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake off the terrifying killing intent that locked onto him. This caused his expression to change again. "I bought the treasure. Are you sure you won't change your mind?" Lin Sun said calmly. "What?" The emaciated middle-aged man cried. "My friend, can you let me redeem it? I'll pay a high price." "Now, it's none of your business. Get out of here." The silver-masked man waved his sleeve. With a bang, the emaciated middle-aged man flew out and fell heavily dozens of meters away, coughing up blood. "How can you go back on your word? You said that as long as I redeem the treasure, you'll give me twice the reward." The emaciated middle-aged man cried on the ground, his face full of unwillingness. Lin Sun and others now knew that the reason why the emaciated middle-aged man wanted to redeem those treasures was that he was driven by tempting interests instead of really caring about his ancestral treasures. And it was the silver-masked man in front of him who promised him the benefits. My friend, I can see that you are a very conceited person. But if you know my identity, I'm afraid you won't dare to do this again. Ignoring the shouting, emaciated middle-aged man in the distance, the silver-masked man kept staring at Lin Sun and said in a shrill voice, "How about we make a deal? As long as you hand over those treasures, I'll give you 3 times the price." 3 times. The faces of the gray-robed man and the white-robed old man changed again. They realized that those treasures were destined to be extremely extraordinary. Lin Sun smiled. From the beginning to the end, this guy had a lofty and arrogant attitude. His seemingly flat tone revealed his extremely arrogant attitude. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed the neck of the silver-masked man with 5 fingers. It was an understatement and not very fast. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the silver-masked man. He seemed to be irritated. He held his palm like a knife and cut it horizontally. Buzz! The dazzling silver light of the way shot out from the center of his palm. It was so dazzling that even the void was torn apart like a piece of paper. The others nearby couldn't open their eyes and were greatly shocked. But it was precisely this terrifying palm strike that was still on the way when it was silently devoured and obliterated. Bang! His palm and fingers were shaken to the point of almost breaking apart, and they were fiercely blasted away. Lin Sun's 5 fingers had seized the opportunity to grasp the throat of the silver-masked man. With a burst of strength, he lifted the man in the air. The silver-masked man was shocked. When he was about to cry out, he felt it difficult to breathe, and his neck was about to be broken. The most terrible thing was that his strength was completely suppressed. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't struggle or resist. Who was this guy? When did such a powerful figure appear in Yinzhou? As you can see, it's easy for me to kill you. Lin Sun's black eyes were deep. Bang! He shook his wrist and threw the silver-masked man out like throwing garbage. Now, I'll also give you a piece of advice. Get out. The silver-masked man gasped for breath as he stood up. There were 5 bloody fingerprints on his neck. He stared at Lin Sun for a while and turned away without saying a word. Lin Sun didn't stop him. He didn't worry about the revenge at all because neither the Misty House nor the silver-masked man could see through his disguise at this time. Child, I'm afraid that this person's background is extremely terrible. You have to be careful. The gray-robed man reminded. Lin Sun smiled and didn't say much. He planned to leave now, but before he left, he also took the skinny middle-aged man with him. The skinny middle-aged man was frightened and unwilling, but how could he resist Lin Sun? He was directly knocked unconscious and taken away. After leaving the underground black market, Lin Sun didn't stay in Lingfeng City. He changed into the Scarlet Flame Taoist body and rushed in the direction of Xuanji sect. Lingfeng City. In an inn, the silver-masked man hurriedly walked in and finally stopped in front of a room. He took a deep breath and took off the mask covering his face. Instantly, his entire aura changed. His originally tall and slender silhouette now had a graceful charm to it, and his appearance became delicate and beautiful. A pair of blue eyes were as clear as gemstones. His red lips were slightly pursed, and he was naturally beautiful. The only thing that remained were 5 scarlet finger marks on her snow-white and delicate neck. It turned out that he was disguised by a woman. Young master. She bowed slightly and spoke in a low voice. Her originally sharp voice became as soft as water. The door of the room opened silently. A hearty laughter came from inside. ZK, why are you back so soon? Did the operation go smoothly? In the room, an auspicious beast incense burner curled up. A lazy purple-robed young man reclined on a soft couch. Beside him, there was a group of young women carefully serving him. Each of them was as beautiful as a fairy. Some were graceful and pleasant, some were bright and beautiful, and some were charming and lively. Some massaged his shoulders and legs, some poured wine and sent food to him. They served him meticulously. The purple-robed young man had bronze skin that was as hard as a rock. His facial features were handsome and clear, as if they were carved by a knife and axe, especially his pair of eyes, which were as bright as the stars. As he looked around, he was in high spirits and had a kind of reckless and arrogant aura. The pretty face of the woman, called ZK, was pale. After entering the room, she knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "Young master, the operation has failed." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room became quiet. The women stopped what they were doing and looked at ZK in unison. Some were filled with schadenfreude, while some were filled with pity and sympathy. The task that was assigned by the young master was actually messed up. The purple-robed young man spat out a grape seed from his lips. He then sat up lazily from the soft couch and said softly, "ZK, don't be afraid. Tell me what happened." His voice was gentle, but ZK shivered. She knew very well how temperamental, perverse, and bloodthirsty this young master was. She took a deep breath and told him everything that happened in the underground black market. After listening to her, the purple-robed young man was surprised. "Someone intercepted you? Do you know who that person is?" ZK shook her head. The purple-robed young man stood up and walked to ZK, who was kneeling on the ground. He helped her up and looked at the scarlet finger marks on her snow-white neck. He said with a heartache, "That guy is simply too cruel. He doesn't know how to be tender to the fair sex. Look at how he tortured our little Z Quebec. I can't stand it anymore." ZK looked ashamed and said softly, "Young master, it's my fault." "It's not your fault. Who would have thought that a powerhouse who could easily subdue you would appear in a small high-wind city? Our little ZK is a powerhouse who is at the peak of the late-stage Saint King realm." The purple-robed young man patted her shoulder and said, "However, this matter is not over yet. The origin of those treasures is extremely great. I, the young master, have spent a lot of effort to find some clues. No matter what, we can't just give up like this." As he said that, he knocked on his head and said, "I remember now. The nearest sect in the vicinity seems to be called Xuanji Dao sect. If we're looking for someone, we should be able to find them very quickly by using their power." Chapter 2006. The purple-robed young man walked straight out of the room after he finished speaking. "Let's go. There's no time to lose. Those treasures are of great significance. Even those in the Emperor realm would drool if they saw them." The bewitching young girls in the room hurriedly followed. "ZK, you're lucky to have met the young master in a good mood. Otherwise, you'd be in trouble this time." Someone passed by ZK and transmitted her voice with a charming smile. ZK snorted coldly and ignored her. In fact, she was also in a cold sweat just now. Her heart was in her throat. She was afraid that the young master would suddenly kill her. This kind of thing had happened more than once in the past, on the vast universe arc that was flying towards the Xuanji sect. "What's your name?" "Sung Yuandu." "Sung is your surname?" "Yes, my ancestor was a wandering ascetic monk. He had profound dharma and unparalleled cultivation. Later, he married a wife and had children, so he took Sung as his surname." On the treasure ship, Lin Sun was talking to the thin, middle-aged man who claimed to be called Sung Yuandu. Sung Yuandu seemed very honest and docile. He answered whatever Lin Sun asked. Obviously, he knew that he couldn't afford to offend someone as strong as Lin Sun. "So, the treasures in the bronze box were obtained by your ancestor from the Kunlun ruins?" Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. Sung Yuandu said without hesitation, "Of course. Otherwise, how could the guy with the silver mask pay twice the price to redeem it? But since it's your family's heirloom, why are you willing to sell it?" Lin Sun's words made Sung Yuandu look embarrassed. He sighed helplessly. "My family has declined, and I'm just a false saint. I didn't intend to do this at first, but for the sake of my son's cultivation, I can only do this." He took a deep breath and said with a complicated expression, "Although I'm not very capable as a father, I don't want my son to be like me. In order for him to walk further and higher on the great path, what's the big deal about selling some ancestral treasures?" Lin Sun didn't say anything. This was the good intentions of father. Although Sung Yuandu appeared to be very down and out and incompetent, the care and concern he had for his son was very touching. Can you tell me the origin of these treasures? Lin Sun asked. Sung Yuandu asked in surprise. Don't you already know? I want to hear it from you. Sung Yuandu let out a long sigh and said, Looks like you don't believe that these treasures were brought out from the Kunlun ruins. That's right. Those lousy things look very mysterious, but they're completely useless. Even I find it hard to believe that these things have any earth-shattering secrets, let alone outsiders like you. That chest of treasures had been passed down from his ancestors' generation and had been guarded and safeguarded by generations after generations of the monk family's descendants. However, countless years had passed, yet no one had been able to discover the secrets of these treasures. By the time it reached Sung Yuandu's hands, he had already lost all hope for these treasures. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken them out to sell. Tell me about it. Whether it's true or not, I want to hear it, Lin Sun said. Sung Yuandu sorted out his thoughts and said, My ancestor's Dharma name is Ji Yi. His identity is extremely mysterious. Our family's books only record that he was an extremely great figure, but we don't know exactly how great he was. We, the descendants of the monk family, only know that ancestor Ji Yi once entered the Kunlun ruins and saw an extremely miraculous treasure furnace. That treasure furnace could fly out mysterious and unfathomable emperor weapons. When he heard this, Lin Sun's heart shook and a name appeared in his mind, the refinement source furnace. Kunlun ruins had the 9 secrets and 3 treasures. The 9 secrets of Kunlun were 9 secret realms. Each secret realm had given birth to an emperor weapon, so there were 9 emperor weapons in total. These 9 emperor weapons were all refined by the refinement source furnace, and they were also known as the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. For example, the Great Tao Immeasurable Bottle and the Great Tao No Blame Lamp that Lin Sun currently possessed were 2 of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. Sung Yuandu continued. Later on, when Ancestor Ji left, he brought back these treasures. After waiting for a while, Lin Sun was stunned. That's all? Sung Yuandu said awkwardly, How can we, the juniors of the monk family, know so much about the matters of the primordial era? Lin Sun was speechless. After thinking for a while, he asked, Where's your son now? Sung Yuandu said vigilantly, Fellow Taoist, don't bring disaster to your wife and children. You've already bought the ancestral treasures of my family. Are you still planning to kill me? Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Don't you want your son to cultivate in a Taoist orthodoxy? With my help, I guarantee you won't have to spend a single Taoist crystal. Only then did Sung Yuandu realize that he had misunderstood Lin Sun. He said excitedly, Fellow Taoist, is that true? What do you think of Xuanji Taoist sect? Who doesn't know about the 3rd major orthodoxy in Cloud Province? I've been looking forward to my son cultivating in Xuanji Taoist sect. Lin Sun said, I'll take you there right away and solve this matter. It'll be some compensation to you. Sung Yuandu nodded repeatedly. He was so excited that he was at a loss. Then, thank you so much, fellow Taoist. I'll definitely repay your kindness. Half an hour later, in front of the towering divine wind Taoist mountain, Lin Sun floated down with Sung Yuandu. Young friend, this way please. In the mountain gate, the elder of Xuanji Taoist sect, Hong Yu, appeared immediately. Obviously, he had been waiting there for a long time. Thanks a lot. Lin Sun nodded and followed Hong Yu into Xuanji Taoist sect. Seeing Lin Sun being treated with such respect, Sung Yuandu immediately believed that what Lin Sun had promised him before was not an exaggeration. This is great. That child of mine can finally be like those geniuses and enter a grand Tao orthodoxy to cultivate. Sung Yuandu was so excited that he felt like crying. No one could understand the feeling of being a father without being a father. For the sake of their children's future, they could give everything they had. Yushu Peak. This was originally the place where Hung Xiao, the headmaster, cultivated. Later, it was lent to Lin Sun for temporary residence. When Hong Yu and Lin Sun arrived at Yushu Peak, Heng Xiao greeted them with a smile. Young friend, congratulations for winning the first place in the Tao discussion of Yinzhou. Lin Sun also greeted him with a smile. This is Hung Shao looked at Sung Yuandu beside Lin Sun. Sung Yuandu trembled all over, his heart beating violently. He was so nervous that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Hung Shao, how could he not have heard of the headmaster of Xuanji Taoist sect? But he never thought that as soon as he arrived at Xuanji Taoist sect, he would meet such a legendary figure. For a moment, he was also extremely nervous. Lin Sun did not explain much. He only said that he hoped to recommend Sung Yuandu's son to cultivate in Xuanji Taoist sect. Hung Shao agreed without hesitation. It's just a place for apprenticeship. You don't have to worry about it at all. Just leave it to me. Sung Yuandu opened his mouth wide. What he regarded as an extremely difficult matter was actually solved by Lin Sun in a few words. This made him feel as if he was in a dream. After a long while, he came to his senses and bowed to Hung Shao with gratitude. "Thank you, headmaster." "Thank you, headmaster," Hung Shao said with a smile. "You can take a rest here first. Tomorrow, I will personally go with you to meet your son." Sung Yuandu nodded repeatedly, full of joy. Soon, an attendant took him away. After settling Sung Yuandu down, Hung Shao said to Lin Sun, "Young friend, Boyazi will return to Xuanji Taoist sect tomorrow. At that time, I will arrange for you to meet him." Lin Sun said, "Sorry to trouble you." Hung Shao smiled casually. "Young friend, don't regard me as an outsider. Don't do this in the future. Others may not know your identity, but how can I not know?" Lin Sun was speechless. "Headmaster, there is a distinguished guest outside the mountain gate." Suddenly, a figure emerged in the distant clouds and spoke respectfully. "Where is the distinguished guest from?" Hung Shao frowned. "It is said to be from the Central Earth Taoist province." Upon hearing this reply, Hung Shao was startled and frowned. The Central Earth Taoist province was the first province in the primordial world. It was regarded as the land of the ancestral court, where the 6 major Taoist courts and the 10 major war clans resided. "Young friend, take a rest." "I will go and have a look," said Hung Shao. Lin Sun nodded and watched Hung Shao leave in a hurry. Then, he walked into the blessed enclave specially prepared for him. Boom! As the formation of the blessed enclave was activated, it was immediately isolated from the outside world. Lin Sun raised his hand and waved. The huge bronze chest appeared and landed steadily on the ground. He took out the talisman key and inserted it into the center of the heavy restrictions covering the bronze chest. As the lid slowly opened, the scene inside the chest came into Lin Sun's view again. A bronze Taoist seal, an apricot yellow flag, a piece of gray soil, and a piece of decaying divine wood. 4 kinds of treasures were inconspicuous. However, Lin Sun's eyes suddenly became extremely bright, no longer concealing the joy and excitement in his heart. As a person who had entered the Kunlun ruins and seen all kinds of magical things in the Kunlun ruins, he realized that these treasures were extraordinary as soon as he saw them in the underground black market. Not to mention spending 9 million Tao gems, it's worth it even if I spend 100 or 1,000 times more Tao gems. While sighing with emotion in his heart, Lin Sun flipped his palm and a black copper block appeared. He held it in his hand as if he was holding an ancient divine mountain. This copper block was the one Lin Sun obtained from the siege of a group of strong people on the upside-down mountain in the Kunlun ruins. Its origins could absolutely be said to be shocking because it was a fragment left behind by the source furnace. Buzz! As Lin Sun took out the copper block, an obscure power fluctuation appeared on the surface of the bronze Taoist seal and the apricot yellow flag in the bronze chest. It was as if they had awakened from the silence of countless years. In Lin Sun's palm, the copper block of the source furnace also became hot, producing a wonderful reaction with the bronze Taoist seal and the apricot yellow flag. For a moment, obscure waves emerged like tides, communicating between the 3 treasures, and the buzzing sound reverberated incessantly. Chapter 2007. When he was in the Kunlun ruins all those years ago, Lin Sun had once seen the Great Tao Bell. It was also through the strand of willpower left behind by this treasure that Lin Sun understood many secrets. For example, The 9 emperor weapons that were born in the source furnace were a divine sword, a spear, a bronze lamp, a flag, a seal, a jade bottle, a set of armor, a jade plate, and a divine saber. The great Tao Bell once said, "The source furnace forged the 9 emperor weapons to defend Kunlun, but it also violated a taboo and encountered an unprecedented calamity, causing the source furnace to completely disintegrate and dissipate." These 9 emperor weapons were hidden in the 9 secret places of Kunlun. In the following years, they were taken away by fated people who entered the Kunlun ruins one after another. Amongst them, the jade bottle of one of the 9 emperor weapons was called the Great Tao Boundless Bottle, and it was first taken away by Li Xianwei on Mount Fonsun. Later on, Lin Sun obtained it by chance on Kangwu Divine Mountain in the ancient Desolation region. That copper lamp was called the Great Tao No Blame Lamp. Lin Sun obtained it from a skeleton boatman when he entered the bloody underworld, the Apex Domain. Lin Sun had already obtained 2 of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. At this moment, when he saw the miraculous changes that occurred between the source furnace, the bronze seal, and the apricot yellow flag, Lin Sun immediately thought of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. He also thought of 2 treasures: the Great Tao Lifeless Seal, the Great Tao Boundless Flag. Could be these 2 emperor weapons? Lin Sun couldn't help but feel excited. He took a deep breath and flipped his palm, and the Great Tao Boundless Bottle and the Great Tao Innocence Lamp appeared. Instantly, an extremely miraculous scene appeared. The Great Tao Boundless Bottle and the Great Tao Innocence Lamp glowed together, and they produced an obscure fluctuation that fused with the aura of the bronze seal, and apricot yellow flag. They resonated with each other, and the obscure energy was like a ripple that enshrouded and seethed between the treasures. As expected, Lin Sun's breathing stopped, and his black eyes lit up. He acutely noticed that a blurry pattern had condensed on the fist-sized bronze seal. In the pattern, the stars were resplendent, the surroundings were vast, the mountains, rivers, and all living beings resided. However, as a deep bronze light descended from the sky, the boundless starry sky suddenly collapsed and shattered. Countless stars turned into powder, and the mountains, rivers, and all phenomena collapsed and were destroyed. The souls of all the living beings in the world were all destroyed. The shocking killing scene shocked Lin Sun's mind and made him gasp in astonishment. In the end, only a Taoist seal floated amidst the boundless destruction, and it emanated an obscure and mysterious bronze glow. Boom! At this moment, the pattern dissipated, and strands of Tao markings appeared on the surface of the bronze seal that lay quietly in the box. They formed 2 heavy and ancient Tao markings. Wusheng. Under the Great Tao, there is only death and no life. Without a doubt, this seemingly inconspicuous bronze seal was one of the 9 Kunlun Emperor weapons, the Great Tao Lifeless Seal. Whoosh! Before Lin Sun could react, a flash of brilliant light suddenly emerged from the apricot flag. The banners fluttered and fluttered, and they emanated multicolored lights of the Tao that were hazy like mist. For a moment, Lin Sun's hair stood on end. These brilliant lights of the Tao looked dreamy and beautiful, but they gave people the feeling that the peerless sword god was coming to the world. Every ray of Tao light was like a ray of supreme sword chi that was enough to split the sky and earth. It seemed that as long as the apricot flag was willing, the endless Tao light would change into a terrible lethality. No matter where you hid, you couldn't escape from this kind of killing. Just like at this moment, Lin Sun's current combat power was so terrible, but when he saw these brilliant Tao light, he felt frightened and his body tightened as if a great disaster was coming. In the end, the dazzling and resplendent glow of the Tao that was hazy like rain silently restrained and vanished within the apricot yellow flag. On the surface of the flag, 2 Tao markings also emerged, which were as elegant as swords and as light as feathers. Wufang. There was no fixed form, no fixed method. It was ever-changing, and there was nothing it couldn't do. Obviously, as Lin Sun had guessed before, this apricot flag was also one of the 9 Kunlun Emperor weapons, and it was called the Great Tao Boundless Flag. Lin Sun's heart was filled with surprise at this moment. He really didn't expect that just by walking in the underground black market, he would accidentally pick up such a great opportunity. He put away the copper piece, the infinite bottle, and the lamp of no blame. Then he raised his hand and waved, taking out the lifeless seal and Wufang flag that had completely changed in appearance. Looking carefully, these two treasures had no spirituality, no aura fluctuations, and were even more inconspicuous. At this moment, the lifeless seal showed a kind of solemn, cold, and terrifying aura. When it was held in his hand, it was like holding an ancient divine mountain. The Wufang flag, on the other hand, was as light as nothing. When held in his hand, the flag swayed, and its color was crystal clear, giving people a feeling of being ethereal. In the end, Lin Sun resisted the impulse in his heart and didn't immediately test the power of these two emperor weapons. Sung Yindu said that his ancestor, Ji, once entered the Kunlun ruins and brought out these treasures when he left. There are even two imperial weapons among them. From the looks of it, Ji is definitely an extraordinary and terrifying figure. Lin Sun's eyes were deep as he thought. Kunlun ruins and Mount Fongsuan were inextricably linked. For example, in the Immortality Peach secret realm, there were traces left behind by that arrogant senior brother. Until now, there was still a woman whose figure was like a purple cloud, silently waiting for this senior brother's return. In the secret realm at the peak of Mount Yulong, senior brother Li Xianwei had once entered and taken away the Great Tao immeasurable bottle. In the forbidden area of the Ascension platform, one of the three forbidden areas of Kunlun, ninth senior brother Gyupu had suppressed Demon Emperor Dutian under the God-sealing sky peak. The inheritance left behind by the founding master of Mount Fongsuan was on the Ascension platform. This series of events proved that the orthodoxy of Mount Fongsuan and Kunlun ruins were destined to have an inseparable relationship. At this moment, Lin Sun could not help but suspect if Ji, who had taken away the two emperor weapons, the lifeless seal and the Wufang flag, was also related to Mount Fongsuan. After thinking for a long time, Lin Sun could not figure it out, so he stopped thinking about it. When he met the other senior brothers and sisters of Mount Fongsuan in the future, he would ask them if they had heard of Ji. Lin Sun put away the lifeless seal and the Wufang flag, and his gaze fell on the remaining gray soil and a piece of decaying divine wood in the bronze box. What kind of treasures were these two? Just when Lin Sun was about to find out, Heng Zhao's voice suddenly sounded from outside the cave abode. "My young friend, sorry to disturb you. There's really something important that I have to tell you." Lin Sun immediately waved his sleeve, put away the bronze box, and walked out of the cave abode. "Fellow Taoist, what happened?" Outside the cave abode, Heng Zhao stood there alone with a gloomy expression and a frown on his face. This caused Lin Sun to be slightly surprised. "Earlier, I went to see the distinguished guest from the Central Plains Tao Estate who came to visit, and I found out the identity of that distinguished guest." Heng Zhao took a deep breath and told Lin Sun everything that had happened earlier. It turned out that when he went to the guest hall, he saw a group of people, and the person in the lead was a young man in a purple robe. He had a lazy and unrestrained bearing, but his every movement seemed like a sovereign descending upon the world. A group of peerless beauties surrounded the young man in a purple robe, which made him look even more extraordinary. After talking with Lin Sun, Heng Zhao learned that the young man in a purple robe was called Zhuan Yuhong from the Zhuan Yu clan, an imperial family. When he was young, he entered the Universe Taoist court to cultivate. Now, he was one of the core successors of the Universe Taoist court, and he was like a peerless genius. When Lin Sun heard the name Zhuan Yuhong, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He remembered that on the Ascension altar, one of the three forbidden areas of Kunlun ruins, Zhuan Yuhong was one of the experts who finally reached the top of the Ascension altar. He came to capture and search for a strong man who once appeared in the underground black market of Lingfeng City with the help of our Xuanji Taoist sect. When I saw the portrait of the wanted strong man, speaking of this, Hung Zhao's eyes became strange. Lin Sun pointed at his nose. "Looking for me?" Hung Xiao nodded and said with a wry smile, "Zhuan Yu used his identity and background to pressure me, and promised that as long as he could catch you, he would do his best to help Xuanji Taoist sect in the future. I don't believe such nonsense, but I have to agree to his request on the surface. So as soon as I sent them away, I immediately came to meet you, my young friend." Lin Sun completely understood. The silver-masked man he saw on the underground black market should not be Zhuan Yuheng, but he must be related to him. The reason why Zhuan Yuheng wanted to capture him through the hands of Xuanji Taoist sect was none other than for the treasure in the bronze box. What a coincidence! Lin Sun thought for a moment. His figure flashed, and his aura suddenly changed. He had already used the yellow Taoist body to replace his original body, as if he had become another person. Hung Xiao was stunned. He opened his eyes wide and carefully looked at Lin Sun for a moment before saying, "What a wonderful disguise." He was a quasi-emperor, but he couldn't see the slightest flaw. Moreover, he remembered that Lin Sun also appeared in front of the world in the Tao discussion of Yinzhou. Lin Sun smiled and said, "In this way, I'm afraid there's no hope for Zhuan Yuheng to find me." Hung Xiao also smiled. That's for the best. However, at this moment, Lin Sun's expression changed slightly because in his body, the four emperor weapons, the infinite bottle, the innocent lamp, the lifeless seal, and the directionless flag, all produced a strange fluctuation. At the same time, the fragments of the source furnace also began to buzz and tremble. This made Lin Sun suddenly recall that when he was in Kunlun ruins, the Great Way Lawless Bell had once said, "Young friend, in the future, if you encounter other powerhouses who hold the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun, you will have a strange reaction. Similarly, you will be sensed by the place immediately." It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse. Right now, the unusual movements of the infinite bottle and the other emperor weapons seem to confirm the words of the Great Way Lawless Bell. Ha, interesting. Sect Master Hung Xiao. Who would have thought that the person I'm looking for would be hiding in your Xuanji Taoist sect? Suddenly, a loud laughter resounded from afar, shattering the clouds in all directions. Accompanied by the laughter, a purple and imposing figure whistled over under the escort of a group of young women. Hung Zhao's expression changed instantly. Zhuan Yuheng actually didn't leave. Chapter 2008. In front of Yushu Peak. When Lin Sun saw the purple-robed young man, Zhuan Yuheng and his companions, his eyes became subtle. It was really this guy. Zhuan Yuheng was the first peerless powerhouse to be conferred as a sage with the help of the will of all living beings on the pilgrimage platform, one of the 3 forbidden areas of Kunlun ruins. The pilgrimage tablet imprinted by him was suspended at a height of 70,000 meters, which shocked everyone present. Of course, compared with Lin Sun's achievements in the pilgrimage, it was much dimmer. However, Lin Sun didn't expect to see him again here after so many years. Judging from his momentum, he had reached the perfection of the Saint King realm. In less than 10 years, he has broken through from the perfection of the Great Saint realm. He deserves to be the successor of the Heaven and Earth Taoism court. Lin Sun couldn't help thinking of Guzhang Xin, Yin Chunjun, and other strong people he killed in Kunlun ruins. They were all from the Heaven and Earth Taoism court, like Zhuan Yuheng. However, when Zhuan Yuheng was on the pilgrimage platform, he didn't show any hostility to Lin Sun. One reason was that he was afraid of Lin Sun's fighting power, and the other was that he didn't want to cause trouble, lest it delayed his opportunity to compete for the pilgrimage platform. Therefore, Lin Sun didn't have much hostility to Zhuan Yuheng. But at the same time, he also knew that this meeting wouldn't be pleasant. Sure enough, as soon as Zhuan Yuheng arrived in a purple robe, his star-like eyes locked on Lin Sun. With a playful smile on his lips, he said in a cold voice, "Headmaster Hung Xiao, it's not right of you to do this." Hung Xiao took a deep breath and said, "Child Zhuan Yu, what are you talking about?" "Oh, don't pretend." Zhuan Yuheng was disdainful. He didn't care about Hung Xiao's ugly face at all. He pointed at Lin Sun and said to ZK beside him, "Is this the person you saw in the underground black market?" ZK looked at Lin Sun carefully for a moment and said doubtfully, Child, it shouldn't be this person. His aura and charm are completely different from the person I've seen. Zhuan Yuheng was stunned, and a wisp of frightening golden light emerged in his eyes. He looked Lin Sun up and down and scrupulously for a moment and frowned. He didn't disguise himself. Are you sure you didn't see wrongly? ZK nodded. I dare not lie about such an important matter. Heng Xiao said when he heard this. Looks like this is probably merely a misunderstanding. This young friend is called Jin Dui, and he just seized the title of first in the Cloud Prefecture's Dao discussion not too long ago. There's no one in the entire Cloud Prefecture that doesn't know his name. The first in the Cloud Prefecture's Dao discussion? Zhuan Yuheng was stunned for a moment before he sneered. Headmaster Heng Xiao, are you reminding me that Jin Dui is not to be trifled with? Behind him, the enchanting women covered their mouths and giggled. With his status as the young master, how could he possibly fear a mere champion of the Cloud Prefecture Dao discussion? Heng Xiao said, Young master, you've misunderstood. This old man just wanted to say that you... Could it be that you've recognized the wrong person? Impossible. Zhuan Yuheng spoke resolutely. His gaze had always been locked firmly onto Lin Sun as if he was staring at his prey, and it carried a playful and cold expression. Headmaster Heng Xiao, I want to have a chat with this fellow Taoist Jin Dui. If you don't want to bring calamity to the Xuanji Dao sect, then please step aside and don't interfere in this matter. His tone was indifferent, yet revealed an arrogant bearing of judging the world. After all, this was the Xuanji Dao sect, and Heng Xiao was the headmaster of the Xuanji Dao sect. Yet now, Zhuan Yuheng had actually bluntly threatened Heng Xiao with the intention of making him step back. This couldn't be described as arrogant any longer, and it was because he didn't take Heng Xiao and the Xuanji Dao sect that stood behind Heng Xiao seriously at all. Heng Xiao's expression changed indeterminately, and he was furious to the extreme in his heart. Right at this moment, Lin Sun, who'd been watching coldly from the side, suddenly started laughing, and he said, Headmaster Heng Xiao, I want to seize this opportunity to have a chat with this young Master Zhuan Yu as well. No matter what happens, you don't have to pay any attention to it. Heng Xiao was stunned. Zhuan Yuheng raised his thumb and laughed wantonly. He said, You're very tactful, and I admire you very much. As long as you're still so tactful later, I won't make things difficult for you. Heng Xiao looked at Lin Sun, and when he saw the latter's firm attitude, he sighed in his heart and said, Forget it. I promise that when the two of you talk, neither I nor anyone from the Xuanji Dao sect will get involved in your affairs. After that, he turned around and left. Zhuan Yuheng waved his hand. ZK, you guys leave as well. This matter, I'll settle it myself. ZK and the others nodded and left. Soon, only Lin Sun and Zhuan Yuheng were left on Yushu Peak. Jin Dui, right? You should know why I'm targeting you. Zhuan Yuheng stared at Lin Sun with a frightening gaze. Let's put it this way. I only want two of the treasures passed down by Sung Yuandu's ancestors. One is the bronze seal, and the other is the apricot yellow flag. As long as you hand them over, I, Zhuan Yuheng, will give you sufficient compensation. Otherwise, he was very direct and domineering, and he didn't bother to hide his thoughts. Otherwise what? Lin Sun said indifferently. Otherwise, I can only fight with you. At that time, there will be no compensation. Zhuan Yuheng smiled slightly, revealing his white and neat teeth. Of course, you're the first in the Tao discussion in Yinzhou. You will have the opportunity to participate in the Tao discussion Grand Conference in the future. If I snatch those treasures, you will definitely be unconvinced. Lin Sun smiled and said, So what are you going to do? Zhuan Yuheng didn't expect that Lin Sun could still laugh at this time. This could only prove that Lin Sun either had the confidence or was not afraid of his identity and threat at all. After a slight hesitation, he said in a low voice, It's very simple. You take 3 moves from me. As long as you can block them, I will leave immediately and won't bother you anymore. If you can't block them, hand over the 2 treasures. What do you think? Lin Sun shook his head. How about this? You and I each make 3 moves. If I can't block them, I will give you the treasures. If you can't block them, you will hand over the treasures in your hand. What do you think? Zhuan Yuheng narrowed his eyes, and his expression became cold. He said, "It sounds fair, but are you sure you want to do this?" Lin Sun said, "You don't dare." Zhuan Yuheng couldn't help laughing. "Interesting, very interesting. Let me see what makes the champion of Yunzhou Tao discussion dare to talk to me like this." His voice was cold and shocked the soul. Lin Sun was even more direct. He directly rose into the sky and stood in the clouds. He said to Zhuan Yuheng, "Cut the crap. Come up and fight." His clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. He was as steady as a towering mountain. "Okay." Zhuan Yuheng's figure broke through the sky like a divine rainbow. His eyes were flowing with golden divine light as he stared at Lin Sun in the distance. "You or me?" Lin Sun said indifferently. "If I start, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to make those 3 moves." The corner of Zhuan Yuheng's mouth twitched imperceptibly. "This guy seems to be more arrogant than me." At the same time, Heng Zhao's face changed slightly. Obviously, they couldn't come to an agreement and were going to fight. Zhuan Yuheng was a descendant of the Zhuanyu clan of the far ancient imperial clan and the core successor of the Universe Taoist Court, one of the 6 major Taoist courts. No matter who won or lost, offending him was bound to cause unbearable consequences. Heng Zhao couldn't help but be worried because of this. On the other hand, ZK and the other beautiful and charming women couldn't help but reveal ridiculing smiles when they saw this scene. Jean Dui actually wants to fight the young master. He's obviously a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They knew too well how terrifying Zhuan Yuheng was. "Don't worry, I'll surely not give you the chance to fight." Zhuan Yuheng suddenly took a step forward as he spoke. His sleeves fluttered while his violet robe fluttered. A wisp of dazzling light shot into the sky from his body and shook the wind and clouds in all directions. In an instant, his imposing aura changed. He was overbearing and arrogant like a sovereign that had descended to the world, and his entire body was drowned by dazzling violet divine light. It just happened to be like a violet sun in the sky. First move, he let out a long howl that shook the 9 heavens like a dragon's roar, and then he suddenly pressed his palm forward. Bang! The violet light of the Tao roiled in the sky and condensed into a palm print that was enormous like a mountain. Its fingers were like peaks, and the striations on the palm were branded with the magnificent and profound energy of the laws. The space near the palm print rumbled and exploded, and it transformed in a violent turbulence that collapsed. The surging sound of the Tao surged, and it revealed the vast scene of mountains and rivers exploding and a single hand covering the sky. The grand palm of heaven and earth. It was a supreme inheritance from the heaven and earth Tao court. At this moment, Zhuan Yuheng had fused it into his Tao domain and deduced it. How formidable! Heng Zhao's heart shook. He'd once seen numerous peerless figures in the Cloud Prefecture Tao discussion, and he'd seen ferocious figures like Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, Xie Yuhua, and Su Muhan. Compared to these people, Zhuan Yuheng wasn't inferior at all, and he even surpassed them. Crush! The violet palm print that blotted out the sky smashed down from the sky. When looked at from afar, it just seemed like the hand of a god had descended from the heavens. Young Master's control of his own strength has become even more exquisite, and he seems to have attained the peak of perfection. ZK and the other women revealed expressions of fervent admiration. Lin Sun stood towering on the spot without moving in the slightest, and he just stretched out his right arm and pinched the air. Similarly, a palm print condensed into form. It was lofty like a mountain, and it was suffused with a boundless and thick aura as it seethed in the sky. The two of them collided, causing the clouds and the surroundings to instantly explode into pieces and disperse into the surroundings. A terrifying, chaotic flow of light of the Tao mixed with thunderous rumbling resounded from the point of collision, and it shook the heavens and the earth. When it vanished into thin air, Lin Sun stood towering on the spot while his entire body was coiled with brilliant light of the Tao, and he had a solitary bearing and was completely unharmed. He actually blocked it. No wonder he has the courage to fight young Master. So it turns out that he's confident. But if he thinks that young Master is only capable of this, then he's gravely mistaken. ZK and the other women revealed surprised expressions, yet they didn't panic and seemed to be very composed, and they were filled with confidence towards Zhuan Yuhang. If all three moves of yours only possess such might, then I'm afraid you'll lose completely this time. In the sky, Lin Sun spoke casually and indifferently. Is that so? Zhuan Yuhang's gaze was gloomy and cold. He took a deep breath, and the imposing aura emanating from his body changed once more. It was ostentatious like the sun in the sky, and it emanated boundless radiance.